Anyone? Anybody would like to share if they try to design their interactions in their business across different components at the front end level and at the back end level?
Yeah, Nikhil, we tried it, but still we are getting to thinking of linear model itself.
Yeah, so that is the thing. So see, the thing is, because since our childhood we have been taught input, process, output, right? And we have been thinking linearly. So but try it. Once you get the hang of it, your life will change, because the way you will look at anything in the world, like we talked about the iceberg model, you see the events, right? And every event or every activity has got certain hidden patterns and models, and those models are nothing but interaction spaces. So you might not get it correct in the first go, but you don't even get your business model correct in the first go. It takes, in fact, it's never correct. It's always evolving. But you do get a sense of things. So if you want to be a good entrepreneur, leader, policy maker, whosoever you are, any product, any service you're doing, understanding these interaction dynamics becomes important. So I would say keep doing that. Today we will go a little bit more into it.
Yeah, it will help us to understand the value proposition from the existing model. So
yeah, so one is the value, and then I said there are small values which create that bigger value, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly,
like in the Zomato example, you said that my value is that I want to eat good, yummy, warm, clean food. But then even app hang nahi hona chahiye, accurate preferences, expected delivery of time, and all that, and front end tasks have got certain, every step has that some slice of a value, and those values have to are nothing but metrics which actually tie up to your bigger KPI. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, so you did make an attempt. So would you like to share?
Shall I share it? Can I share my screen? Or?
Yeah, please share your screen. Even if today, if you guys are okay, if it is 1.5 hours, if it goes to 2 hours, it is okay, right?
Yeah, for me it is okay.
For everyone else? Okay, very good. Everybody writing yes.
Yeah, able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the existing model what in the current market. This is our model. So we able to find out the event or interaction points.
Okay.
So for in the current point, current system, there are too many user effort is there to get the things done. But in our step, user will be able to get the things done in a less steps.
Right. But these are the front end. Now, where are the back end? Because every front end can have an interaction with the back end. For example, if I search a shoe, the shoe should be there in your inventory. Or if I go to a restaurant and order some food, it should be there in the inventory. And then there's a processing time of making it, or or delivering it, or manufacturing it, whatsoever kind of a setup you have. So have you even mapped the back-end actions?
Yeah, that's what we not yet actually.
Okay. So do that, and then you have to divide them into subsystems in a customer journey, right? So you divide it into subsystems, like you're talking about R by Smart Refill. So payment is another subsystem, and then your search and discovery of your product is a different subsystem. Comparison of your product can be a different subsystem, and all of them can be a part of the app only. and then how that interactions are happening. Okay. So, right, thank you for sharing. You can make it far better and try to list all those events and put it into subsystems and then make interactions. So we'll do that. We have done it at day before yesterday, and now let's proceed further.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. If you all can see my screen, please let me know.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome back, and let's start from. So we did talk about how interactions happen. We even saw an example of even in a small order of a food, if everything goes good, there are 41 interaction points. And we realize that they are non-linear. It's not necessary that a person, if he's ordering a food after the order has happened, he can or she can call the delivery also, or they can even call the the restaurant or Zomato. So it becomes very non-linear. We did cover that these blue are nothing but events or activities. These events are broken down into different subsystems. In our Zomato case, there was a customer, food app, restaurant, delivery, payment, external factors like rain, then your friends. And then we did see that there are certain interactions that have happened. So first interaction was taking the, getting hungry and then opening the app, searching the restaurant and confirming the payment, but not confirming the order. Then, so order has been placed but not confirmed. Then the app has to interact with the restaurant. They has to check the inventory at the back end, package, expected delivery of time. But the ETA was a problem in the use case we saw, where the customer got irritated. And for that, you had to not only calculate or design the ETA of the restaurant, but also of the delivery. And that is where, and that also means not only the delivery location, but the number of deliveries at queue, plus the mode of transport. And keeping all of that, you have this interaction space. And obviously, ultimately, if you see on the right hand side bottom, we talked about some values. So that's in this simple case was that the values we wanted is warm, food, speed, hygiene, courteous stuff. And all of these events, and they're interacting in different subsystems, are serving some part of that value. So this value can be your KPI, and this can be a KPI for this interaction space. And then there's a business KPI. Business KPI could be, okay, customer is satisfied, but what is the business KPI? Business KPI is that the revenue grows, your product upsells, and ABCD, whatever other business KPIs you have. So it became that, okay, when the person was irritated, then there are certain interactions more that happened, that he called the contact center. He even, phoned the delivery, and delivery said, sir, abhi aa raha hu. And then obviously all of these interactions have a certain struggle points in your business. And these interactions are very dangerous if not accounted for, because we saw कि एक तरीके से बड़ा simple लगता है कि okay, place your order, get food, we'll deliver it to you. But if these hidden interactions are not designed for excellence and awesomeness, they will you will get into a problem pretty soon. Specifically when startup scale, you will see a lot of startups when they scale, there's a drop in quality or there is a lot of churn because this interaction dynamics is missing. So, and we did talk about some actions that this whatever you get from these struggle points, whether you're physically observing them. And we also looked at a software like Hotjar, like how at every interaction point, at every event, how much time they spent, what they clicked, where they went. Did we do it or not? Yes or no? Guys?
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we did it.
Right. Oh, and then obviously you have with the data, you can make some interpretations and then you can come to assumptions. And in the after they have a conclusion, in the actions, you can redesign your interfaces, your value propositions. But there is something called belief, which is bias. And this is something you have to be very careful. Sometimes we take it nahi aise hi hota hai, ya chalta hai. तो चलता हुआ एटीट्यूड और ऐसे ही होता है, और कंफर्मेटरी बायस की उसका भी तो ऐसे ही है. लॉट ऑफ स्टार्टअप्स है, बट सर द कंपटीशन इज आल्सो डूइंग दैट. Yes, if the competition is doing it, that doesn't mean you have to do that. You always find your novelty, your niche, your USP. So today we're going to talk about, and so we ultimately realized when we went to that day before yesterday, also it was a lengthy session, but you understood that our perception of the world is multi-sensory, and when a person interacts with your product, your brand, your service, there's a multi-sensory perception operating. And if the interaction space is not designed well, then there is a churn rate, there is unexpected behaviors, and this is which can have good or bad outcomes based on how what has happened. So that culture might eat strategy for breakfast, but we realize that interaction nibbles the organization inch by inch without even we realizing. So ultimately, it is a play space, and our job is to design the play that no matter how the user interacts with the system, it is resilient, it is balanced, and then they can tell a story, a good positive story about it, the ripple effect which we talked about, right? So now so there's a persona. Every persona that is interacting in your business or your customer or your consumer, they have a certain behavior. And we did study the behavior line, and then we put them as how they're interacting with the events. So when you're designing a system, it is very important to anticipate and predict the behavior lines. Like we said that sometimes you might think that the person will open the app, or when they go to a restaurant, they will do A, B, C, D sequence of steps. Like we saw in McDonald's example, a person we could say stand in the queue, but there could be a lady who is in an emergency and she has to catch up a flight, and she went and requested a manager that, and they please, her son is crying or daughter is crying, and if they can provide the burger sooner. Now you cannot say, sorry ma'am, that is against the company policy, or a lot of people are standing. So there are unanticipated behavioral lines which are constant, defined by the system, defined by the environment and the situation, which we actually say in our general normal language as context. And your system should be able to accommodate that. Your people, your product, your service, everything should be able to accommodate at least most of them. Obviously, we can't go and predict every interaction, but we should be resilient enough where we are covering most of the use cases. And obviously, these interactions, the events have a backend space. So when you are, when a person, let's say, orders food at the same, let's say I go to a restaurant, or let's say I go to the airport, and I'm interacting with the airport space to find, to check in, and to, for example, look, and do security check baggage. That is a predicted space, because that is by law, by DGCA. So you will follow it. But once you are inside, then it's free flow, right? You can go to some kiosk, you can go to some terminal, you can buy stuff if you have extra time. So how that back-end stages are happening, which are enhancing the experience of your customer in a physical environment or in a digital environment, that is very important. There are certain simulation tools I will tell you today also, or I'll tell you today. Like I showed you day before yesterday, the tool Hotjar for digital. So for your factory or for your physical spaces also, there are tools for that. Obviously, every interaction should be having a metric of measurement, and that measurement has to tie up with your KPI. So we decide that there is a certain goal or a mission or an outcome. And that outcome is nothing that, for example, you want a customer to buy a product, or customer should leave with an awesome feeling. And this goal moves from right to the left, because first thing what happens is that there is a recall, and whether you're on the measurement side, like when I was hungry, the person recalled and ordered, opened the app Zomato. They could have opened Uber Eats also. They could have opened some other app also. So the idea was, do you recall, is the brand strong enough? If the value is strong enough where they recall you, or they can discover you, may not be recalling, maybe it's the first time customer, but can they discover it through a channel? That discovery can be through SEO or digital marketing, or that could be through word of mouth, or through your distributor and channel partners. So can they discover you or recall you? And once they recall, then what happens is you move to the left. that is the persona in the system, what value they desire, what actions they take, explicit and implicit, right? Some are subconscious interactions. Like say in an app, there is a button. Now, obviously the position and the design of your space is also very important for a person to play with it. So if it is not clear where the button is, or where there are too many buttons, or the color or the shape or the symmetry is also not right, what can happen is it might not actually translate into a click, or allow the user to go to the next level in the interaction space. And but let's say they do it right, you've designed those actions well, so then you have interaction of subsystems. For example, in Zomato we had 4. We had the app, we had the customer, and then we had the restaurant, and we have the delivery. And when he's interacting with the system, if you look at the flow part of it, there is something click to action, or Q is a trigger. So whenever there is a trigger, it is easy for me to find to do the front stage action. And when I do the front stage action, then there is a trigger to the backstage, right? The backend actions key. Acha, the customer is wanting this, or they are expecting this. And at the backend, your process team or your delivery team or whosoever that is responsive, prompt, have accurate data. And then obviously there is going to be you're sending a response based on the intent, and then we can measure it. So the measure can be at the metrics and the numerical level, where we say at every interaction space event that this is a metric, and overall what was the KPI wanted to achieve from a strategy. I'll show you a strategy board also, so that will become more clear. But that is not enough. We don't live in a by numbers, you know, we live by hearts. That is also the other thing. And if the heart becomes bad, it creates a great turmoil and divisions in the world, like we see today. And if the heart and the heart-to-heart talk, दिल से customer को आप खुश करोगे, तो फिर अलग ही बात है. You know, जैसे घर में हम ये नहीं बात करते कि तुमने इतना percentage of मुझे proteins दिया और तुमने इतना खाना दिया और मुझे ऐसा नहीं. No, it's about, you know, the thing. So we can only win our customers, we can only win business if we connect at the emotional level. They resonate, they become your evangelist, and then they can tell a story about it. And that's the measurement. So we have a system, we flow in a measurement, and it starts from the right to the left initially, because you got to have a strong brand discovery, brand recall, and then it starts from how the system has, what are the elements of the system, the flow, and then how do you measure. So if you look at it, so let's cover the first part, that is the persona, right? We talked about the persona. What is a persona? Anyone?
Customer profile.
Like you should know everything about
Everything about the customer.
from the point the target customer wakes up and sleeps, like what all activities. I mean, you should also know what they dream about.
Okay, so we should know everything
where
about
they
the
go,
customer.
Where they go, where they visit, where they spend most time.
Okay.
Digitally, offline.
Okay. So is it only the customer?
No, it can be different user personas, like
Yes,
the
yes,
buyer,
yes.
the decision maker.
Decision maker, influencer, पत्ता
Yes,
काटने वाला,
influencer.
पत्ता काटने वाले भी होते हैं. So you know, for example, if you have a decision making unit, there are people who will try to say, "Arey, this is don't buy this." So they can be conservative, they can be liberals, left wing, right wing, also personas. B2B space. In a B2C space, it is simpler. But there also you can have a persona, buyer and a customer, or you can have a buyer and a consumer, or like you guys said, user. It's the same thing, interchangeable. You can say user or a consumer. We would love to know everything about the customer, but do we know everything about ourselves? No, right? So we can't know everything about the customer. So our idea is to get some intuition and some data. Today you have very powerful tools using artificial intelligence and machine learning, which can do very good clustering, and it can do at both the level, B2B, B2C. There are tools for B2B where looking at LinkedIn data. Let's say you're going for a sales call and you're interacting with a certain persona or decision maker. You can look at their social feeds, their blogs, if they have written any. Usually people do these days. Everybody wants to feel heard. So you can figure out what their nature is, where they rely, and take it from there. So persona, if you look at it, like you guys said, there's a profile, there's a behavior, there's a need, and in that there can be certain qualifications. But what is the most important thing in a persona, if I ask you? Or let me divide the question into two parts. What is the most important thing in a B2B persona versus a B2C persona? Anyone?
The functional things which can help.
The gaps, right?
Yes, the needs.
Okay. And is it just the needs? Okay. Oh, very good. So needs is one. And what could be the second most
I
important?
mean, like if they are facing any kind of problem, whether you have the exact solution for that.
That is need. That is need. You have just need the gap.
Benefits.
Yeah. So need
Motivation. That's the motivation or
very good. So motivation is something. So there's something called Hicks law. Anybody heard of it? Hicks law. So what does Hicks law say? So Hicks law says is that if your number of choices and the decisions you have to take are too complicated, or you could also put it in the other way, if your motivation is high, but the difficulty level to operate in your environment, whether it is in your office space, whether it is in a factory, or whether it is in a app, is very high. So then there is a problem. People will not do it, and they will drop out of it. So user experience will go bad. So this is proven globally. So your motivation and triggers tie up to your behavior. So again, there's an interaction happening within the persona only. So there are three things which are the most important. One is, what is the gap? What are they looking for? Two is, what are the triggers for them to initiate that gap when they do that? And three is, how they behave with that. That is the interaction space. So you need all of these three to actually map. And obviously, once you have done that, for example, here the motivations are, that I want to have, let's say, I want my promotion. So let's say this is for, and user needs, I want to have an impact on teamwork. So this could be maybe a person who wants to learn to interact better in an office environment. And then there are certain frustrations that a person, he or she has, is Charlotte, and and she's facing some goal issues. And obviously, how do you, let's say you have a product which increases the a SaaS offering which increases how do you influence people? How do you increase your influentiality index? And so obviously your persona is a person like Charlotte who won't like to take your platform. And based on her behaviors, based on her triggers, based on a need gap, you can design a lesson plan and a program for her as an offering where she can fit in better. So whatever that offering is. Second is, which we talked about, if you know B2B scenario, you can have multiple. This becomes even more complicated. You can have an initiator, user, influencer, decision maker, approver, buyer, gatekeeper. And how many of you have seen that B2B spaces become far more complicated than B2C spaces? B2C spaces have got a lot of competition, by the way, but there is a lot of irrational choice also. Buy one, get one free, or fear of missing out. Fear of missing out does play even in a B2B scenario. Like today, everyone you talk to, they want to have a chat bot or AI without understanding what are they trying to achieve out of that. Everybody wants to look hip and cool, from our ministers to our entrepreneurs. But the question is, in a B2B environment, it becomes a little bit more complex. So you again have to map every persona. So how many of you have faced this situation in a B2B environment where you try to map the personas and you realize that it is a struggle where you try to convince one and you are not able to convince the other, or though you have crossed 2 levels and suddenly at the third level they say sorry, we don't want it, and then you realized when you did some win-loss analysis that the system administrator said no to it, or he or she put his foot down. Have you ever experienced in a B2B scenario? If you are into B2B.
Well, what we are facing is that people get sacked or they change, and we have to convince again, and the whole thing changes. Other than that, the scenario that you said, because we try to make the decision come as fast as possible. We don't try to extend the time period. But the thing is, when the person changes, the whole thing changes.
Yeah, that's a different scenario. Let's say कि वो जैसे वो तो सरकार में बहुत होता है कि बंदा change हो गया. That's a different thing. But but if you have to map a persona, right? So you have to understand the attitudes and behaviors, and then there is just not the attitude and behavior. B2B becomes a little bit more complicated. Again, you have interaction dynamics here. So this is my sheet. I'm just sharing with you, just showing you for a second. So we realized that, and this is I'm not going to take the name, but this is a real scenario where we took, and we realized that there are certain, there was a big company and they had a lot of stakeholders, 7, 8. And in big company, what happens, you know, you have bureaucrats, inside a lot of generals, and they have their politics, whether it's a salesperson, their internal sales team, or whether they are some users. So this is for IT product, similar to persona like you see here. And what we couldn't figure out is, first of all, who is the decision maker? Because you might get into a meeting and it sounds very rude that who was going to decide. You know, you don't ask. Obviously, you can see the designation, profile, and portfolio. But even if you look at the profile and portfolio, sometimes the influences are not clear. But what you will realize is, before I go to the Excel sheet, this is one tool which I just want to, some common things you can do is, you would realize a lot of, let's say there is a, couple of people, I'm just drawing here, and, there is an interaction going between them. And let's say, they're talking, but what you would see, a lot of people are asking questions, okay, if to you, or some or few of them are asking, so typically if only one person is asking and replying, then it is easy to know that he or she is the boss. But this typically happens in an Indian context. Let's say you are, because we are a hierarchical society, so there's a masculinity or a femininity index. It's called Hofett's index, which has a cultural context to it. But there could have been situations wherein a B2B you're interacting with Germans, Americans, or in a multicultural environment. So the lot of times what big companies they do is, specifically good salespeople, they see not who is speaking to them, but then they see in the end, सबसे ज़्यादा कौन, मतलब where the connections are falling to, meaning or looking up to, because you always look up to the leader. So maybe 5 or 6 people are grilling you. What is your product? But why do we want it? What? Show me the break even. Show me the internal rate of return. Show me the ROI. But your competitor has more. We can't afford this pricing. We see that the break even is not going to be in 18 months, but in 24 months. What value do you bring? And your team is showing demos and collaterals. But when you suddenly realize that in that meeting that there is someone jisko sabse zyada connections point ho rahe, and that is a person you would know the decision maker, and the person who is talking the most likely is the influencer. So this is not just a theory, okay? So you can actually go, and when you're going into your meetings also, I'm not talking about the user space, you can actually in a B2B environment do that. So we actually did this where I have removed for sanity purpose. So we actually give them 0, 1, 2. 0, 1, 2 is nothing but acquainted with and friends, because we had multiple meetings, and obviously for multiple meetings we realized who is the influencer. And if I click, I can see, if I go to person 1, I can see their connection routes. I can see person 3, person 4. And when we map this, And then we all not only map this, then we can also go ahead, and then see in the landscape, in the interaction space, degree of support towards you, where they say, but I think they have a point, and and then someone could say, and somebody might of them, are influential. And obviously today using LinkedIn data, you can figure that out. So looking at a degree of support and influence, you can then map out, okay, if our project or our software is very dependent upon this person who is influential, is he an enthusiast? Is he trying to follow us in a way he's aligned, he's evangelizing, or is he an opponent, or she an opponent? So if you have an opponent, then what do you do? So if your criticalities of success depends on someone who is very restrained, very conservative in your sales meeting also, so then in that case, the degree of influence is higher, right? So then you need a counter force. Then you need a counter force, equally a force who can act as a degree of influence to convince the stakeholder. Keep in mind, if stakeholder, the key stakeholder is not convinced, the game stops, that the buck stops. But B2B environments, specifically complicated environments, you can actually understand who is supportive, who is restrained, who is neutral, and you try to take the neutral and try to take a buy-in from them. Maybe set up one-to-one calls first with them. Try to see what value propositions do they want, and in the value, the need gap, the triggers, and the behavior line, what aspirations can be and interactions can be, which can create an impact with their KPI. And then you move them, and then you can say, okay, initiate which team member is neutral, supportive, and then you can create a counter force. So what happens is, why that Excel sheet I just showed you is, so in that Excel sheet, we realized that there was certain person 4 who had lot of fat connections with couple of leaders in the organization. And but he was very restrictive, very conservative, and we don't know why internally. It was just through communication we realized it, what he's thinking, why he's poking too much, and some of the questions were not some. Even if he showed something, there was a lot of discouragement. So then the team went and said, okay, this is a strategic deal, a very big deal, worth. And this is typically not for startups. I'm just giving you a flavor here. This deal was worth $450 million. It's not a small deal. Okay, that's why. Then what we did is, so obviously it's not going to have one round. It's going to have 7-8 rounds of negotiation, or even 20. So then we found out that there is someone, who is 3, who is even more powerful, or this woman was more powerful. She was German. We realized when we talked to her, we saw her posts, we saw her some of her blogs, we realized what kind of affinity she has, and she had a lot direct influence with the CEO. So then our whole communication shifted. We said, let's just listen to person 4 in a meeting. This is interaction dynamics in a sales, right? But let's not counter him. Let's not let the ball pass like a bouncer, and let's try to excite person 3. And our whole, the sales team's orientation shifted towards person 3, and we tried to convince her. We showed her value. We showed her some use cases, certain demos, certain prototypes on what it can do, the possibilities of value creation. And eventually the deal was cracked. Now, obviously, it is not that, okay, if this works in one case, it will work in all the cases. Sure, that's not going to happen. But then the world is not linear, right? But these stakeholder mapping and relationship analysis do help you before you go and do in your persona analysis, because you can't put them in silos. These all are interacting with each other and have subconscious influences on each other. So you have to even map this interaction space. That's why I told you, like, everything in the world is interaction, from your human body to your communication. Everything will fall under the interaction space. So even in sales calls, just to give you a context, this interaction space can be planned out. Okay. So obviously we now know that there are certain behaviors and actions, and then they map to a certain persona and need gap, but those behaviors and interaction have influences. And maybe the decision maker is the manager, approver is the CEO, but maybe the buyer over here, we have Warren Buffett over here, so just take it and example. But he turns out to be the biggest the person whom you have to address. So this is a very personalized dynamic which you have to build an intuition and data. So I just used interaction arrows and with that data we were able to figure out whether they are neutral body, whether they are supportive towards us, or whether they are too resistant towards us, and how strong is their influence. And if this influence is too strong, and we think that deal is very strategic. So some customers you'll have to let go. But if it's very strategic, then you need a counter force, and you have to figure out who's the other person who is supportive or neutral, whom you can get it on your side. Okay. So that is a B2B persona. I'm leaving it there. Any questions on that?
Well,
Right.
how do you find out the influences? The interaction inside interactions.
No, so obviously you can't find the inside interactions of they're talking in a secret room. That's not obviously you going to do. But what you can find out is there are subconscious triggers. So the people who influence, you will look and people who are decision makers, you will see after you speak something or you say something, they will look into each other or they will give some kind of a body signal which becomes very clear. So this comes with a lot of practice. Like for example, have you heard a tool called empathy map, which we use for customers and consumers?
Oh.
Have you guys used in your design thinking empathy map? It's a very important tool of design.
Yeah, we have done it.
Yeah, so what you say, think, feel, and do, right? So the feeling and do is just not physically picking up an object. It's the behavior, the body, how they're behaving towards it. So if you're sitting and you're conscious, and one person can't do, so there has to be one. So if you have in a sales, there'll be 2 or 3 people. One person will be fielding the questions, one will be showing the demo, but the third one will be only observing. If you can afford to do that, if you have a big deal, okay. So that's why I said this may not be applicable to startup, but so for example, what we used to do, I can't take them, but these are big organizations from Microsoft to Cisco to Goldman and Citibank, you name it. And what they do is so they have this one person who's not talking at all, and they're just observing कौन बोल रहा है, कौन नहीं बोल रहा, और जो बोल रहा है ये influencer है कि decision maker. Most likely they turn out to be influencers. And then there are some people who are just sitting quiet, but they are maybe decision maker. They just speak 1 or 2 sentences. But how do you understand they are decision makers, or they have a greater level of authority, except for the LinkedIn part? Because not only because a person is CEO doesn't mean he or she is taking a decision at the business level. They may be taking at the corporate level. Is where the eye contact. So when a leader speaks, everyone in the room eye contact goes towards them. And you can initially see the body reaction and say, all right, this is he or she is the guy who's the the boss here. At least in this context, if they have to deploy, let's say, system security solution, and you are a system security company, and then these are the other players over here, and some of them you will know while they interact with you, are they too resistant? That doesn't mean they might always say that product is not good. Resistant also mean that their body reactions, they might not say something, but their body reactions are cold. You can feel it, you can sense it. This is something we are born with. And that is how you would have to do, right? So so this Excel sheet which I showed you is not that it is going to work all the time. It doesn't happen. But we have seen that at least in 70% scenarios, you are in a better shape to navigate that space of sales trajectory. Okay, coming back, and let's come to B2C. So B2C personas can be broken down to clusters also. What do you mean by clusters here? Can someone tell me when you take a persona which is a representation of an archetype, what typically accurate personas, how are they clustered? I mean, I can cluster them based on their area, based on geography, based on trends. What do you think an accurate clustering in a B2C environment is?
Beliefs or interests? I mean, depend
Yeah. So belief, interest, and another thing, behaviors.
behaviors.
Right. So that is why you see Amazon, you see Googles of the world, they focus a lot on kahan click kiya. For example, that day showed you, right? I that day, if I go to Hotjar, right? And sorry, not Hotstar, Hotjar. Hold on. And in the Hotjar, the tool which I showed you, right, which I had integrated, we saw that so obviously we saw these are the recordings, whoever have visited marvelnut.com, and we saw ki, let's say this person has come here to my site. From which location has he come? It also shows whether mobile pe aaya, kahan aaya. And then I can say when they came here, how much time they spent on the site. So it's written 3 minutes 25. And first someone went there, and then I can figure out, okay, they're trying to see something, and then they stopped here. They're looking at it. They're trying to judge, okay, kya hai? And obviously then the person tried to field something, and then he stops here. So maybe he's trying to make sense of the diagram. And then I realized maybe that our diagram is not good. In fact, I told my team that day that it looks like the person is stuck here. I don't know. But what I did realize is after they are stuck here, they went and looked at other photographs and they tried to make sense of it. So ultimately the context is important. Not my context is relevant to you, but typically what is once you are mapping the gestures, you can understand how they're interacting with it. So similarly, how behaviors are behavior has got an underlying property of influence of interest and influences. But they also have something called what they are likely to buy. So in a B2B contest, let me give you one example. Let's say, let me show you something called fashion MNIST. Guys, when I'm showing you these tools, the idea is not to get you to carried away, but I'm just showing you what all can be done. So let's say you are an e-commerce site and you sell jeans, you sell shoes, sandals, accessories like purses and wallets and t-shirts and some other stuff, whatever clothes is. But this is an interaction space. This is a multi-dimensional data using machine learning, where we can figure out the distance between two products. What are the distance? The distance is most likelihood to buy. So this is a multi-dimensional space. It is actually, I think, 200 some dimensions. That means 10,000 products examples of Zolando, and how their customers buy. They have put it in this kind of a space. So what happens is, if let's say if this legging and this sweater are too small a distance, there are mathematical formula like Euler's distance, or you can do cosine distance. If the distance is small, you know, because last 10 people, 70% of people who bought this sandal or this sweater, they also bought this blue jeans, example yellow. So they can buy, they might buy it. So this becomes your recommendation engine. That is why when you go to Amazon, and if I click anything, you will also realize that frequently bought together. Okay, and then uske niche, after they're showing you comparison, so that your decision logic is not, so this is an interaction space. They figured out that the decision should not be impaired. In this one page only they should interact. And then they've also shown me similar stuff like customers who viewed this also viewed this. Now, obviously, machines are also not perfect. There is no relation with this, with the calculator, or there could be, I don't know, maybe 30–40% of the statistical data says that people who are buying this are actually also landing up buying this. So it will figure out that and it will give you. But how it is doing it, it is going to you'll use machine learning, and it will use some kind of a machine modeling. Over here, you can see multi-dimensional data and try to give you a better accurate, and you will be surprised. It is they're so accurate that they know what you will buy even before you know that you will buy that. and it is accurate to 90%. I mean, we ourselves have designed those systems, worked on them. It surprises us also. So it sounds scary, but that is what the clustering is. So persona itself and interaction dynamics is not important. What is important, this is just not for a PPT that you put key what is the behavior and the lifestyle and the interest, but these are really very important to capture. And I do understand you might not get all of this on day one. No one can get it when you're doing a startup. I mean, I have done startups, I'm still doing startups. So what happens is, but as you evolve with time, right? As you evolve with time, you have to collect this data. So like, for example, I showed you the example of Hotjar. We collect that data from Firebase. We collect the data from what people like, don't like, comment. We collect the data, so we know, and then we put it into a clustering engine, and then we know which personas or which people can be grouped together. We can call them segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, and what they like, their choices or products could be very different. Their customer journeys could be also different. Their interaction spaces could also be different. The other way where people clustering is FRM. Sorry, it should not be R for FRM. How many of you are aware of FRM analysis? This is again part of persona. So if you have done design thinking, can someone tell me what is FRM? What is FRM analysis?
No idea.
Okay, so how do you calculate the LTV of, okay, that is going out of context, so I will not cover, but how do you calculate the LTV of your customer?
Directly calculating how much he will spend. Means, especially in my case, there is no repeat orders, only AMCs, so we can calculate.
Okay,
Or
but
B2C,
in any whether it's a B2C or a B2B or any business model in the world, you can calculate LTV. And products which don't have a strong LTV actually are not the right business models to even to go forward with. So you should always increase your LTV. There are ways to do it, obviously out of context of our discussion. But what, how do you calculate LTV, basic LTV? What is the first? I will not cover the formulas and mathematics here. Forget that. But what are the 3 elements of LTV?
like how much time, the frequency
Very
they're
good.
coming, then for each frequency, what is the value that they're giving to you?
Okay.
Like your order value.
Order value. Okay. Frequency and money. And
yeah, and I mean this is what we're using for now. Third factor is,
and the third is recency. So let's say, and I'll give you a live example here. It's a bad example in a way. So for example, like I like to eat a lot of biryani. Okay. Obviously my kids and my wife says don't eat so much of junk food, order from outside. But I really like biryani. So what happens? So Zomato has my data. Okay. Now again, I'm going back to Zomato example. Just by chance, I'll give you other example, airport examples also afterwards. Okay. So they know कि मैं क्या order करता हूँ. They already have those trends. Let's say I order few, biryani a lot. B's biryani here. Then they know my recency cycle in the interaction space. कि Nikhil interact करता है in elements से. Let's say these are nothing but subsystems, right? And then the biryani is delivered here and I eat it here. And they know that Nikhil orders always 1 plate or 2 plate or 4 plates of biryani. He goes, he searches. So obviously they'll show it in my preferences and trend lines here only. And then there's a probability from here to going here to here to here. Add to cart to order 90% probability. They also know my probability of ordering this in the morning is not there. It is only the frequency in the evening time it is there. For example, maybe at 8:30, 9 p.m. I might place an order. So I can have it at 10 o'clock or 10:30. Now what they also know is that I order biryani after every 14th day on an average. So obviously sometime I'm ordering at 8th day, sometime ordering at 12th day, sometime ordering at 19th day. but on an average, they know that I order at 14th day. Okay, 14th day is example the average. So if you have to send marketing messages and lure me in, give me a bait, would that be on the 14th day, 19th day, or when?
Fourteenth day? Would it be on 14th day? On an
No.
like 19th day, is it? If you've
No,
overshot.
so not even the 19th day. So you will have to give me maybe when your 80% queue is full. Matlab threshold. Matlab 12th or 12th day around, right? And
Just shy of that average threshold, is it?
Yeah. Why? Because you can't call everyone on your platform or in your business as customer. Because lifetime value, because yes, your business model can have lifetime value. For example, in Amazon, what do you think, which segment, now you know about frequency, you know recency, and you know order value is money. Tell me which segment, you can tell me on the fly. What is the LTV of an OLX? Where you put second-hand furniture over there or whatever for it. Does it have a good LTV? It has money. Does it have a good recency?
I mean, if you just consider furniture, then no. Like if they're getting into more categories, it'll.
It would depend.
From a customer standpoint of view, how many times you sell on OLX? I ask you this reverse.
Life-changing moments when you're maybe moving cities and you want to get rid of your things.
So your frequency is very low.
Yes.
Maybe monetary is high, but frequency is low and recency is very low. And you keep a lot of marketing money burned to sustain yourself. It is not a sustainable business model. So one of the indicators I'm just giving you. Okay. So now obviously you can crack it. There are other ways of cracking this. Now if you look at it, in Amazon example, what do you think will have the highest FRM? They have got so many categories, thousands of categories.
The categories which they offer subscriptions in currently.
No. Food.
Okay.
Yes.
Food, yes.
So now they have calculated, bhai, हर एक आदमी 10,000 रुपए अगर खर्च करता है महीने का. Obviously, looking at our inflation and expenses and the state of affairs in our country and even globally, this is not going to be 10,000, but हमने hypothetical example ली. 10,000 मतलब 1,20,000 रुपए वो महीने का साल का खर्च करता है. और मैं अभी हम सब फूड की बात कर रहे हैं. Young millennial generation, 24-year-old. If I am able to, I am putting this condition, the person is not doing a churn rate. Person is happy with my value proposition and my interaction space. I'm putting that assumption here, okay? So once I am used to a habit, it becomes like obvious to me, right? So if they safeguard themselves for 25 years, let's say I'm 24 till 50, okay? For 25 years. What is the, and this is not compounded. What is LTV? And I'm not compounded at this point of time, right? I'm not put the money you have paid, there's a time value to it, right? I'm not compounded. How much is LTV here on the calculator?
30 lakhs.
25 lakhs. Okay, very good. Now it's 30 lakhs. So if I compound it, it actually technically might come to 50, 55 lakhs. And we are talking about one category. That is the reason there has been an immense fight on the grocery business in the world. That is why they acquired Whole Foods. And that is the reason to give you so much lucrative offers. They said, even if we have to get into a loss, Amazon should get into the movie delivery business. Get Amazon Prime, and to hook people into Amazon Prime, you buy Prime for deliveries so that we can initiate action. But you know this, and let's try to give them more content. Because through the bait of content, you are buying the Prime subscription. And because of Prime, you can get hooked to the FRM. And this is just one category, but obviously the most attractive category. Okay. So frequency, recency, buy, but there has to be an assumption here. Lot of startups struggle. Guys, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Lot of startups struggle because what they do is something very reverse. I will cover there. They go for funding without setting up their interaction dynamics and excellence. Then they do a lot of marketing. Obviously, when you burn, you will, suppose this is your marketing, you'll also grow like this. But once you grow like this, you will find their churn rate has gone like this. They're churning also more. Because मैंने बिरयानी अगर 12 दिन में ऑर्डर करी थी वो तो ठीक है, अगर मैंने 25th डे तक ऑर्डर नहीं करी वो भी ठीक है, अगर 90 डे हो गया उसका मतलब क्या हुआ, आपका कस्टमर है
नहीं है.
right. So there are three things which are involved. They're called dance of three balls. One is the value you give. Two is the how fast you or slow you grow and what pace you should grow. So you should be like a monk where you should know the metric at what pace you should grow. Some customers will leave you, but the question is what pace you should grow. And the third is team burnout, your organization, org. But to manage this, you need to have the system dynamics into it. That is why system interaction becomes very important. No one talks about it. But if you look at go to complex problems, right, from how to set up a national policy at the European Union level or a global policy. Not that they've done a good job, but they do try hard. These are complex problems. They're far more complex than setting up and creating some small value as a product or a service. Everyone is using system dynamics. So frequency, recency, and monetary is another way of segmenting the customer space. So now comes the important part where how can we define value? Okay. How can we define value? So have all of you defined what value you give in your business model?
Yes.
So have you measured that value?
Yes.
Please give an example if we can understand. It's okay, we are interacting. The question is, I want everyone to interact so that we can have a much richer, enhanced experience of learning. So
Like
what value are you giving to your customer from the customer standpoint, not from your standpoint?
So basically, they are saving around 12 by install. I have a wind turbine, rooftop wind turbine. So by installing that, they are saving around 12 lakh rupees in a period of 10 years. Due to saving in the electricity cost as well as diesel costs.
Okay, so that is they're saving 12 lakh rupees, and how much they have put in?
So they have put in initially, they have put in 6 lakhs. And after getting the ROI, the total is 12 lakhs, means they are saving around 18 lakhs in total.
So if I put my 6 lakh rupees at a systematic rate, risk-free rate, I'm just trying to understand the value here. A risk-free rate of, let's say, 7.5%. फिर अभी तो 6.5 चल रहा होगा, but let's say example. Okay. So आपने 6 lakhs है आपका, right? And you are putting it into, well, better to an Excel than thing. So for 10 years.
Yes.
So sorry. So if I don't invest in your business, I'm just trying to calculate.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Okay. So have you done this calculation? I'm trying to understand. The customer can ask you these questions. I'm just trying to play a devil's advocate. So let's say you have 6 lakhs. Okay. And your rate of interest is let's say 1.075. मतलब 1 plus
7.5.
Yeah, right. And if I put this here, hold on, wait. So I put the principal amount into this to the power of 10, correct?
Yes.
So in a risk-free rate, ये 12 लाख रुपए तो ऐसे ही हो गया.
Okay.
So how are you creating value?
Okay.
You understand my point?
Yeah, I understand your point. Yes.
Okay, now
So,
let's say
sir,
आपने वो 18 लाख जब आप बोलते हो, now now you have created over the above the risk free rate, you have created additional value, right?
6 lakh
Additional
rupees.
value,
Yes.
right? That's 60.
Yes.
So I'm coming here. Now your proposition has to be so clear that in 30 seconds you should be able to explain. So you're not giving wind turbine. Wind turbine is just a medium means for it, which you can talk
Okay.
later. What you can say is we allow customers to save on electricity and reduce their global footprint, and yet make
Okay.
12% on their money. Suddenly वो बोलेगा यार मैं बिजली भी बचा रहा हूँ, 12% भी सेव कर रहा हूँ, मार्केट में तो 8% भी नहीं मिलता. You see what I'm trying to tell you here? Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
So now then the second question what she is going to ask you is how, right? But this is not the total value. Value should also include total cost of ownership, maintenance, operation, and let's say after 10 years, what is the life of this wind turbine?
So it is around 15 years.
Okay. And then
15 to 20.
Okay, and then replacement and operation cost, have you included in this 6 lakhs or no? This is a fixed cost.
Yeah, I have included all the costs which can be occurring during these 15 years, like maintenance and everything.
Okay, so that is 6 lakhs is any make. So the pitch is, so guys, this is something very important. A lot of people go and
Yes.
they go and pitch and they say, sir, I am, for example, the pitch could have also been, I am making a wind turbine. It is the latest technology because there's a lot of global footprint warming. And today I am trying to be very good boy by trying to solve this problem. And we have got 5 features. You can also remote control it through the app. You can see the electricity graph that is coming. Who the hell cares?
Yes.
See what I'm telling you. And what most people do in their pitches when I listen to startup pitches this. So you have to come and translate that value into numerical form, right? So what are those values? If you realize courts are very good at it. You might not agree to their value proposition, but courts are very good at it. So even if let's say somebody has to be compensated for ignoring the chemicals being fined for ignoring and harming people, right? A population because chemicals have leaked into the, let's say, flora and fauna of the ecosystem in a particular locality. To, let's say, calculating how much compensation to be paid to a person if they lost their life through because of the mistake of the car, maybe an autonomous car, or maybe the car was secured, but the airbags didn't open. So even now you will say, but this is so difficult. No, it is not difficult. So you can understand the potential of that person and you can translate that into a value or threshold and you can add it to it. So any product, any service, you have to take the core product. The core is the function, the design, the efficacy, and you have to take the intangibles. And then you have to take the total cost of ownership. So I'm going to come to values. There are only 14 types of values in the world. Sorry, 16 values in the world. And these values, you can map any value. These are parent level values. So you might give a value of, let's say, wind turbine generating electricity, but at the end of the day, it is saving costs. So costs is another type of a value, right? And your value should not, there can be multiple values. The key of the trick is, if you really want to do well, your value, what the customer perceives, should not be 20 or 30% of your competitor. It should be at least 3 to 5x. If your value is less than that, get out of that business. Then either you don't know how to do business, or you have not found out the value, or go and do the homework again. Because no human mind, and I'm telling you, you can reflect back on your life, can say कि सर ये 2 feature में extra दे रहा हूँ, नहीं चाहिए यार, क्यों दे रहा हूँ मुझे, या ये इसमें 20-30% better है. You can't distinguish because the magnitudes are not there. Human mind is accustomed to magnitudes. So, but when you see a value proposition of, a 5x times you saving the cost, or increasing the speed by 300 times, or increasing your revenue by 300 times, or let's say I can give you trust and security more than anyone else in the country, where you feel secure. Let's say LIC example, Then or a SBI bank, which in a traditional context, right? Today to NPS bhi bahut bad gaya, but giving an edit context. But still, there is a certain trust you will have on them. You say, nahi, yaar, our trust hai. Now that value should be at least 3x or 4x of your competitor. If it is not, it is a problem. Now, how to design values is not the course we are getting into, because we are talking about interactions. But if you have not done that, you look into it. So, what are the value components? One can be trust and risk. Now, this can be trust maximization, risk minimization. Execution, your speed and or of complexity. So if there are a lot of complex things, let's say long supply chains, or let's say you are a startup which is making the outer body shield of for ISRO rocket to take, so they have the ISRO has given a lot of contracts to or subcontracted to a lot of startups put in the country to make the outer body shield. That's a complex problem because it has to sustain heat, velocities of speed, and then it has to when it escapes our orbit, it has to go to another orbit. And then, so it's a very complex problem from that perspective, and they have to do a lot of R&D simulations. So execution. Typically, if you look at military armies, most of the armies in the world, they're very good at executing things. Speed of thinking, speed of doing things. You want to order from Zomato or you want to order from Domino's because 30 minutes mein aata hai. Other way of speed is why Maggie became famous. Maggie 2 minutes. Maggie didn't become famous. The 2-minute thing, it was the 2-minute thing which give it a driver force. That 2 minutes में बन जाएगा और taste तो है ही अच्छा, जिनको अच्छा लगता है. So Maggie 2 minutes. That is why always in that Maggie 2 minutes. That value they were highlighting, they were amplifying that value. It's an amplification. And then they have innovation and uniqueness. Okay, you are something unique which to offer which no one else has. Let's say you made a COVID drug whose protein binding is very good and it has got a good efficacy level and it is not at risk also. So then obviously you will say ki wo uniqueness hai. Yeah, for example, you have any other product which you say ki my offering is unique because of A, B, C, and D. Let's say a simple hard disk, even a hard disk can be unique. That day I think did I give you the hard disk example? I did with I don't know kiske saath kiya tha. Did we cover hard disk example?
No,
By the
no,
way,
No.
okay. So what happens is now this is how interaction dynamics you can see how the things are interconnected, right? So what happens is, let's say, so there was this company which actually came to us and they actually are making hard disks which are super secure, and typical hard disks operate at from 5,000 to 15,000 IOPS. Their hard disks are operating at 100,000 the speed. Now, obviously, the value proposition, the guy didn't come of hard disk, and he actually the pitch was. Imagine that you are an e-commerce company and you lose 20% of your customers because site loading time increases. And we all know that, yes, that's true, that there's a lot of Google data about it. Imagine you don't lose those customers and you delight and you upsell them more. Because the data input output reads have increased. And not by 1-fold, by 5-folds. And the cost is just 25% more. And the life of the hard disk is 1.5 times more. They obviously they had come for consulting, not for this. But the larger context, they didn't come for funding. But if you call up most VCs, they are chasing them. कि हमसे fund ले लो, हमसे fund ले लो, हमसे fund ले लो, और वो funding के लिए नहीं जा रहे. बोले नहीं चाहिए. We can sustain ourselves because the uniqueness, that innovation is so powerful that it is the scale of magnitude is seen. So again, I'm repeating, look at your business models. If your uniqueness is less than 3 to 5x, 3 तो मैं फिर भी conservative लेके चल रहा हूँ. My team that tell them अगर 5x से कम है, don't do it. You're wasting your time and you're wasting everybody else's time. Then another value can be proximity, right? Some people say, let's say, abhi oxygen concentrators, unfortunately during the wave 2, we had issues, right? And Northeast say had to come those oxygen, the tankers. It was because of proximity. And the second problem was like we also donated a couple of oxygen concentrators. In fact, we made a oxygen concentrator. We made oxygen concentrator. You will not believe this. So that is called rapid prototyping. We didn't know anything about. We're not mechanical guys, but we actually went ahead and we created oxygen concentrators. We got them certified. We called it OxyRest, and we gave it for not for profit. I mean, to somehow. So we created this, and this is a prototype. And we and this we didn't know anything about it. Where we got stuck, and I'll tell you where we got stuck. So now this is already ready, and it was done in May, June. From 3rd May to mid-June, it was already there for approvals and certification to the government. But the larger context, these are some of the images. I'm just showing you here so how you operate this. So we went, this is a compressor, these are the coils, then you have the valve chambers where this is made. And then we don't want to get into manufacturing. We just gave this knowledge transfer to other small manufacturers who could then use it for manufacturing and doing their supply chain because they're good at that. But there is some fundamental miss, over here, which I'm going to talk about. Life story. Okay, this is during the pandemic. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my people. That is a proximity, right? And the other thing is scarcity. That's another value. Now there is something called this oxygen concentrators rely on something called lithium. Zeolite, and there's specific zeolite 13x lithium coated. Now, what does this zeolite do? It looks like a helix structure, and उस helix structure में क्या होता है कि your nitrogen molecule is heavier than the oxygen molecule. So nitrogen फंस जाता है और oxygen वहां से pass out हो जाती है. So in your environment, 22% is oxygen and 71% is what do you call 70
Yeah, 71%.
Yeah, is nitrogen, right? And then you have 1% other argon and all that. Now what happened is all over India, why people were dying is because the tankers proximity were there at what do you call north southern part eastern part of the country. Now that's a strategic failure. It's a strategic failure because of the fact is this could have been planned. You could have not that they deliberately did it. Say interaction design that failed. Who was from the supply chain perspective? Even if India in this lithium coated zeolite actually has to be put in the concentrator. Whether you're putting in a बड़ा हॉस्पिटल में या वेदर घर में छोटा मास्क के साथ सिलेंडर के साथ. But this zeolite is not available even today. Okay, now whether it is in the black we don't know, or whether so they've created a scarcity, but more importantly it is stuck up in the supply chain because there are back orders by countries, nations globally because of prediction of third wave and the fourth wave and subsequent. So if you call up US or if you call up China, then you have a backlog queue of 3 months. So again, proximity. But if someone can provide that, crack that, do that, they can address that scarcity and proximity problem. Then you can be addressing the cost problem, revenue, relationships. Maybe you are a company which provide exclusive club memberships or an enclosed which is CEO's club where CEOs interact over golf, and then that's also pretty exclusive. So that scarcity that not everybody can get in, and that relationship which you can build over there amplifies that value, and you may be charging per month 50,000 also, and CEOs might find it valuable because they can interact with other CEOs, get hundreds of more ideas of how to go about doing things. Positive buying experience, service, safety, time. And then you have other variables which reduces effort, simplifies, makes money for the other. Again, reduce effort and reduce risk are reduction variables. Reorganizes things in a simplified way. Again, part of simplification. That's why I said, yeah, lagte alag hai, but hai sare the total 16 only. And we have already talked about relationships, which we can also solve connects. So if you map, you can have a configuration of these value, and whatever value you will give, you will find that 90% patents are also find. There are only two types of most patents which have been filed in the world. One is on the value side and other is on the problem side. Problem side also, there are only few problems on which couple of patents, 90% patents are filed, not today or tomorrow or yesterday. I'm saying for the past 90 years. And similarly, the value proposition, these are the 14 value principles which you should look at, which should satisfy your persona. Now, every persona, whether it is a B2C persona, whether user or a customer, or whether in a B2B context, like I said, like you can have 5-10 people, decision maker, influencer. Everybody के लिए कुछ सबको तो खुश नहीं कर सकते, but जो major influencers and decision makers हैं, उनके लिए कुछ तो take away होना चाहिए, right? From some experience, some surveys, some impact like revenue or relationship or scarcity or trust or innovation speed, some value where they can talk about it. And that it should not be 5, 10, 20, 30, 40%. That is useless, doesn't matter. Okay. Now, these are functional values. You also have emotional values, right? Where you can say that is through interaction dynamics, which we have already studied it. How do you make better experiences? Which awards me, which is therapeutic. Therapeutic doesn't mean कि उसको कोई potpourri sungha diya ya agarbatti ke paas. Therapeutic means you're delighted with the experience, right? Whether in the physical store, whether it's a B2B product, B2C, it doesn't matter. And then there is a certain motivation level, life changing. It transcends them. It transcends. This is a more upper, higher level, where it's something which transcends them because the value is so strong that they start becoming evangelizers. They say, "Lena hai to isi se lo aur bhai kisi se mat lo." I'm telling you, my life has they've transformed my life, or they've transformed my company. That transformational value is very hard because that is also very much dependent not only on an innovation index, but also based on how your culture is and how you have formed a team, which is the hardest part. The hardest part in anything is team forming. Okay. So now we understand values. We also understand that at every event, A, B, C, D, they are mapped to certain subsystems. And whatever your strategic goal or the value is, wo ye 14 values hai. And in these events, there are slice of those values, chota value, which when the overall experience transcends or is completed, you get the actual reward of the greater value, which is tangible and intangible, right? And then obviously once that value is translated, you have to test the system, whether this value is really being given or not, whether people perceive it or not. How can I measure that value? The matrices. That is important from the customer side matrices and the business side. Not that only the customer खुश है, लेकिन lifetime value ही नहीं है, repeat purchase ही नहीं है, upsell ही नहीं है, virality ही नहीं है. Then that is again a problem. So we've already covered the example. I'm not covering systems, subsystems. You've got it. So typically, you know your persona, you know their behaviors, pains, and gaps, and you have broken out into subsystems. This kind of a subsystem. And in those events, there are certain matrices that you have to measure, which map to the value, which becomes your KPI, which becomes your success matrix. So the thing is that interaction space is called a journey. And in that journey, there are certain signals, right? How they react, what is the pattern you see. Any doubt still here? Yes, I guess. Guys, any doubt? Hello?
Nikhil, do you have an example of a product type system? Once means just an overview of it.
Obviously, product type system, you mean from a, you want me to give an example, or I was actually planning to show you a simulation later on. So there's a software called AnyLogic. It is free for personal use. And you can simulate your product or an interaction or an environment or a service on this also. So, but I'm not, this I'll cover. So you want an example. So I'll be covering, yes, I will be covering more examples as we go. Aage hai, isi mein hi hai. Okay. And I will also show you some simulations. Okay.
Okay.
Nikhil, for values in these 14 values, do you prefer like, okay, if we have these values for sure, then that's like a, I mean, these must be there. Like,
no, not four. They can be 2 values. No one can have 14 values.
No, I'm not saying like but like, okay, if like for especially for e-commerce, yes, speed, I would say, like definitely a factor. I mean, without speed, because that's the, and so is there, I mean, I'm sure like for different industry the values will be different, but if you have to discuss for e-commerce, these are the values you must have, because Amazon is covering a lot of values already, right?
Yeah. Amazon will not be a right example because Amazon is too big a beast now. It's
Yeah.
a universe in itself. So I will be covering an e-commerce example also, and I will be covering matrices. Now, values keep in mind, even in e-commerce could mean different to different people. So what values your customer wants is something I'm talking about here. So somebody might want speed and quality and packaging, all three. Some might say that I want trust and quality. I really don't care about speed. It can be, let's say कोई अचार बेचता है and तुम्हारा अचार awesome है and organic है. You know, you're a site which sells organic achars, and it also creates a social impact because you're giving back to the society, let's say to some poor village, and showing some social impact. This is a very simple example, right? You're not Amazon, you just chota achar. So the order of preference might change, right? You will say, ma'am, I can't deliver it to in 3 days or 4 days. It will take 15 days. But that might be understandable to them because the value they might be looking for is authenticity, chemical free, freshness, hygiene. You see what I'm trying to say? So these values, um, again, even in e-commerce, it can change exponentially depending upon the context you are talking here.
All right, makes sense.
Okay, so you can have a B2B site. Let's say the values which Alibaba gives is far different from in fact, Alibaba is far bigger ecosystem than Amazon. One of you might not realize this. Amazon is not a sustainable ecosystem for, if I expand the system dynamics at the society level, it is not a good example to be set in the industry. Why? Because it kills people's businesses all over the world. It cannibalizes it. But Alibaba is doing something very different, right? What Alibaba's model, we might not like because they're Chinese, but that's okay. But if you look at them, they are more organic and holistic in nature because they are empowering small manufacturers, small traders to become a marketplace and interact and have a quality check. They also have quality audits, and they also have stars. कि कौन सा हमने audit किया और कौन सा नहीं किया, and then you can get fair pricing. So that model versus Amazon model, where Amazon is winner takes it all and their community takes it all, that is a fundamental difference. So again, in those two environments also, the value propositions could change a lot. So ultimately, why this system interaction and dynamics are important, because bahar se everything can look same, but when you look at the interactions, when you look at the patterns, you can then start seeing the internal design and structure. Then you can go to depth and say, okay, this is what they're trying to do, and this is what the value at least is intended for. How much of that is being translated as a part of experience can be always debated, deliberated, improved, questioned, probed, and all that stuff. Okay. So now we talked about interaction spaces, right? And now I'm coming to those examples also. So you have to break down those events, the events we talked about, which are into subsystems and they have interactions. Some of interactions, I mean, not all, couple of interactions, when you put them together, they form an experience unit. And that experience, some of all those experiences become a life cycle stage. So let's say, for example, and I'll come there. So let's say, for example, I'll just skip for it and I'll go here. Let's say I go to a pizza. I want to do pizza, right? First thing is, if you look at it, what I do, if you look at the actions, right? Is search pizza, and then they select pizza. Okay. And search is a pre-order stage. But the order stage can have couple of events into it. that is select, order, and then the post order and order ki beech mein you have wait, and then you have retrieve pizza, right? So you can break it down it into experience stages, right? You can say that, okay, pehla experience ye hai. Similarly, in e-commerce, your first experience could be what? Because you're digital, first is the customer has to find you. If I can't find you, then so first is the discovery stage. So when I write jeans, what do they discover? They discover Myntra, Ajio, pantaloons. And what also matters is the communication. What are they saying? What are they saying here? So here the value they're focusing. See, now you will see, if you look at now your messaging, everything will become very clear. So if you look at it at the discovery stage, can you tell me what are the values and what are the segments? It is very clear. What is written?
Yeah, like
basically jeans for everyone,
or who,
every type.
And what values?
Latest brands.
What? Yeah, so they have highlighted the values because they have to do it. So even as a competitor, you can know, okay, what values they're targeting, because they have to communicate that value, right? You cannot hide that values. So you can hide interactions. They might also may not be aware of all their interactions. No one can. But the thing is, you can see front end pe acha. They're talking about variety, colors and sizes. And then if I go here and I read more about the description I got to, then I say, okay, at the discovery stage, what is Ajio saying? What value they are saying?
First thing is low price.
Low value. Low
Now you
price,
see
yeah.
what I'm trying to tell. So now you know, oh, okay. Ajio, Myntra is going on variety. Ajio, and you see, if you see, Ajio is not writing about like you know, Myntra, kids, men and women. Ajio is positioning itself for
Huge collection.
for men, right? So and then उसने बोला कि low price. इसने low price नहीं बोला, और जैसी low price बोला उसके नीचे क्या दिखा दिया इसने?
Coupon codes.
Yes. So it is very clear. Okay, why when I write jeans it shows Taliban in testing? Something must be there also. They must have banned it. Anyways, now if you look at Levi's, it is not a B2C. Levi's is not a e-commerce, right? I mean, it can sell on e-commerce, but it's a brand of jeans, right? So obviously, what value they say?
Iconic styles.
Iconic.
And yet modern.
Modern, yes.
Okay, iconic yet modern, and then skinny, tapered, whatever value people are looking for. Tapered jeans, skinny jeans, slim fit, straight fit. So again, guys, so value. So this is part of value communication. This is subconsciously they do it, right? So you have to be very clear that is your value proposition coming out, and is it explicitly clear to the users what value you are trying to give. So if you look at the experience cycle, if I go here, right? अगर e-commerce होता, so I'll come back there बात को. सबसे पहला आपका स्टेज क्या होता? प्री ऑर्डर की जगह डिस्कवरी, उसके बाद होता सर्च, उसके बाद होता कंपेयर, समथिंग लाइक दैट. आई एम कंपेयरिंग 2-3 पैटर्न, 5 पैटर्न, 10 पैटर्न, व्हाटएवर. नाउ सर्च एंड कंपेयर में मेरे को रिव्यूज एंड फीडबैक होते हैं, मे बी फिर मैं ऑर्डर करता या करती. यस और नो? एंड देन मैं उसको ट्रैक करता है करती. अब उस ट्रैक के एक्सपीरियंस में लाइक अ फिल्म मेकर, उसके अंदर बहुत सारे इंटरैक्शंस हो सकते हैं. ईच इंटरैक्शन का कोई यूनिट ऑफ मेजरमेंट हो सकता है. कितने टाइम में फ्लो हो रहा है प्रोडक्ट यहाँ से वहां, या कितने टाइम में ये बटन क्लिक करके वो नेक्स्ट स्क्रीन पे जा रहा है. हो सकता है कि नहीं हो सकता? एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट कैन बी मैप टू अ KPI. For example, in this experience scene, we saw the persona of this woman, right? And now I'm showing you the flow. So maybe we see that she always likes to add some whatever she likes. She doesn't buy instantly. She adds it to her favorite. It is a behavioral dynamic. So she's added to her favorite, and she goes to she sees whatever goggles she likes, and but we've realized that in frequency of buy, the behavior is she doesn't buy abruptly. She adds to her favorite. Maybe her pocket is not that much And then when she has amount of money, she can buy. And maybe then I can nudge her more. Flash 30% discount, or maybe your friend has bought this, or do you want it to be, or maybe I can gamify it. With this, you get this, so you can play all that thing. But to play all this, you have to have an interaction dynamics, designed. And ये आप paper पे भी कर सकते हो. It doesn't have to be that you have to have a fancy simulation tool. I will show you a simulation tool also. Like I showed you Hotjar. I'll show you physical spaces also. But it doesn't have to be. You can also do it on Excel sheet. That day I did show you an Excel sheet ki open the app, value है कि 100 milliseconds में आना चाहिए, और क्या what they are looking for, the values की accurate description, correct images, right prices, and what are they giving as food items? Yes or no? Right? So
Yes.
you can do that, right? So ultimately, all those experiences have got certain touch points. It can be a chatbot, it can even be multiple at each experience stage. And then you are forecasting the challenges. And for this, you have to know the interaction. How are they going to interact at that experience stage? How are they going to interact at the discovery stage? So let's say you realize the challenges at the discovery stage. Let's say I write Puma jeans. Maybe if I realize Puma jeans, I don't find anything because they're not a jean company as such. So it is very generic value. You can make out. Puma jeans in India, buy Puma jeans, free shopping, cash delivery, easy returns. So this is generic. It is nothing to do with jeans. Yes or no?
Hmm.
Yes, because Myntra.
But when I wrote Levi's, iconic styles, yet modern. So they combine two physical attributes, the legacy and the modern, they combine together. So it becomes very, very clear if you're observant, right? That what happens. So if you put up a local brand, koi local brand hai kya batao, it'll be much more interesting. So I keep playing these games and see interactions and seeing what they're trying to say. Any local brand? Arvind Mills.
Roadster.
क्या नाम बताया आपने? Rockstar.
Roadster.
Road. Okay. So Roadster jeans. See, now somebody has to go and tell them ki bhai, you are not discoverable only. You're only discoverable on Myntra and Ajio only if they find you. Only someone writes Roadster. उस पे भी कुछ नहीं लिखा इसके बाद. Roadster jean, men, woman, great prices, free shopping, return, generic. Now you see they have failed. The Roadster, they might have a site, I don't know, but you see now they're not discoverable. So आगे का experience stage कैसे था? अब वो कोई Roadster अपने sales वालों को गाली दे रहे होंगे या branding marketing को, पर आप discoverable ही नहीं हो बॉस पहले तो. तो हम अभी live कर रहे हैं, ये नहीं कि that waiting. So you understand that. So that what I'm trying to tell here, right? So and then you have to at every interaction or at every stage of the experience, what are the metrics you are looking for? And we'll come to that. And then what improvement? Okay, so what are the stages? So those stages are nothing but experiences, and those stages can map to be actions. Those actions you are seeing over here. Can you see actions?
Yes.
Those actions are in purple, blue, or turquoise blue, but you can take it as purple, green, yellow, based on which system it is from. Because those events may not be in the same subsystem. Yes or no? We have seen in interaction, like search an app, and so they can be so, but you have mapped those actions. So if you have mapped the interaction dynamics, then you can plot these. Then you say, okay, how they feel. Maybe you can physically observe how the person operates an app, or maybe you can observe in your store कि क्या इनको item मिल जाता है जो ढूंढ रहे हैं, क्या ये उठा के रख तो नहीं देते. What are they? Where are the eyes looking at, navigating at? What is their emotional face पे भेद भाव क्या है? I mean, what are the emotions and feelings? Are they experiencing something good? And what are the pain points? Now, if you look at it, like this is an example of a shoe. So first is the awareness stage. Now awareness and discovery have an overlap. Let's say if a new company, then you have to be discovered. If you're an old company, then you have to have awareness plus discovery, because they can be a recall. Then there's a consideration stage कि मैं खरीदूं, कौन सा खरीदूं. एक्विजिशन में मैंने खरीद लिया, सर्विस में ट्रैकिंग से लेके वारंटी से लेके कैंसिलेशन एंड देन लॉयल्टी पॉइंट्स, and then you can break it down into steps. Let's say ये पर्पल जो एक्सपीरियंस स्टेज है, अवेयरनेस, यहाँ wants to buy is the metric. तो buy होता है, वो क्लिक करता कि नहीं करता, clicks on the landing page, browses the shop, and then when it goes to checkout, then lands and says thank you, and then अब इसमें टाइम कितना जा रहा है, इसमें क्या बटन विजिबल है कि नहीं, एंड जब ये हो रहा है टच पॉइंट, जैसे पहला वांट्स टू बाई, तो सबसे पहला क्या दिखता है टच पॉइंट, लेफ्ट पे ads, which we saw right now, discovery stage, and whether the ad is just a stupid image or it is conveying an emotional response with the customer, it is emoting out and relating dil se, and वो values क्या देख रहे हैं, क्या वो mentioned है और किसके लिए. So I showed you even in the messages, even in that छोटा सा 2 word के उसमें they have mentioned किसके लिए है and क्या values they are looking for, iconic styles and all that, or whether वो दूसरे brands थे जो भी थे. And obviously when I click on an ad, उसके बाद मैं shop में गया, shop में जो डेटा आ रहा है हो सकता है वो कंटेंट मैनेजमेंट इंजन से आ रहा हो बैक एंड पे, फिर हो सकता है मैंने ब्लॉग देखा, न्यूज़लेटर, एंड देन व्हेन आई गो टू ब्राउज, I can review pricing recommendation that can come from the recommendation engine from the back end. Then I go to checkout. If you look at the pink, it could also be when I check out, it will also interact with my payment gateway. Yes or no? So security and all that stuff. So now if you see, you can have all your backstages listed नीचे like departments, और अब उस stage पे वो कहाँ जा रहे हैं. Currently what happens is you have 5 interaction, you see 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in these 5 interactions, there are 10 sub interactions happening at different across departments. Then in this 7, you have 22. Then in this 13 acquisition stage, where you're saying thank you, there are far more. Similarly, when you have ordered, you should be able to track your order. So if can you trace your order to the supply chain? Do you know who is delivering the order? Do you know where the order is? Do you have the way bill number or whatever that invoice number is, plus the tracking ID, and all of that can be. Then can you reach support? And once you have received your order, can you know more about the shoe experience? If I do a barcode scan, it tells me where the shoe was made, whether it is sustainable or not, and whether there is some thank you card. I don't know, whatever it is. So whatever you want, you can design the experience stages. You can break it down into steps, and then where it is interacting with, and each of these departments से क्या expectation उसका measurement and KPI हो सकता है. But ये तब तक नहीं हो सकता जब तक आप उसको पहले free flow ना करिए. जब आप free flow कर चुके हैं, तभी आप उसको linear interaction space पे लेके आ पाएंगे. I hope guys see, this is not no one will teach you this, and this is a complicated stuff. I'm trying to simplify as much as possible. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying, and I hope मजा आ रहा है.
यस सर, मजा आ रहा है, बट टेंशन भी आ रहा है कि हम लोग बहुत कुछ मिस कर रहे हैं जाने या अनजाने में.
टेंशन आ रहा है.
Yeah, it's a bit complex. Not that doesn't sound difficult, but complex. It has many parts. We are just thinking, do you have any? We really understand right now, but we might not be remembering all these things. Is there any way to follow up on those things?
Yeah, so see, again, the thing is that until you don't see, there are books, so you can just write System Dynamics for Business. I will tell you the book, you can order and buy it. But how many of you read books? I am pretty sure it is not going to solve. You have to, until you don't do the things are complex. For us, it becomes very simple. The first day I saw, I was lost. But once I started realizing, I started doing it with my own hand, then I started seeing the world in a different perspective, different time. So what I'm trying to say is, that is the reason I asked you guys, go back and do it. Now, honestly, tell me how many of you did it? Because spoon feeding is not an answer. So if you have not done it, so even if you buy the book, what are you going to do it? I'll tell you the book, the System Dynamic book. One is The Fifth Element. You can buy it. It's one of the greatest books ever written on management. Okay, we teach system dynamics. Just by system element, you'll get to know even more than this. But the problem is, please buy system element. But the problem is, until you don't do it by hand, it is of no use. So you have to do these things. Okay, so if you don't do it, yes. And when I mean by complexity, that doesn't mean that up. And even if, by the way, let me tell you one thing: whether you map it or don't map it, be very honest to yourself. To complete this step in your company, all of these interactions would be happening. You may not be accounting for this, but they're happening or not. If you have to give some value,
Yes.
so the thing is, it is already happening. Now, all I am saying is, if it is happening with randomness, or just because you have put some processes, just map it more so that you can have control over it, so that you can design those experiences more. Okay, they're already happening. They're not in your control. Once I'm delivering a product, there will be certain experiences, whether you define it or don't define it. There'll be certain stages and processes, whether you measure it or don't measure it, and you will be giving the value. But then you cannot complain later on that once that value is not translated into something good or happiness or getting more orders, because there is a way to do it. Okay, so again, now these behavior lines which we talked about, there can be research driven or they can be assumptive. Assumptive means you can also imagine like a filmmaker, अच्छा बंदा यहाँ से यहाँ भी जा सकता है, या वो हो सकता है awareness stage पे वो he already knows about my site and maybe वो कम blocks पे जाता ही नहीं, देखता नहीं, directly order दबाता है और order कर देता है, या मे बी वो बार बार ऑर्डर करके कैंसिल करता है, ऐसे भी होते हैं. So you will find that also. So you can those what if scenarios also have to be taken into consideration. So these behavior lines can be anticipated and anticipatory. Similarly, in a physical space, this can be for a restaurant. I went to a restaurant. I'm standing in a queue, and there is no one. होता ना, we go to, how many times we went to a restaurant and we realized that हमारा ऑर्डर लेने नहीं आया. ऐसे कभी लाइफ में हुआ है?
Yeah. Like,
और फिर क्या आता है? गुस्सा आता है?
I mean, not to me being a patient person.
Especially if you're hungry.
Yeah, because you are hungry.
Yeah,
And अब वो टेबल पे बैठे हो, आप थपथपा रहे हो, भाई ऑर्डर ले ऑर्डर ले ऑर्डर ले, और वो आया ही नहीं, और आप हाथ दिखाते हो इधर उधर. Now all of this, can you redesign that experience? You know, it can be. So and how would you so there are some restaurants where, you know, there are not everybody is a waiter. They figured it out, and some good restaurants, there is one person who is just observing. He's like a router. And then when he sees उसका काम नहीं है कोई और एक्टिविटी करने का, उसे देख रहा है, and then वो देखता है कि फिर भी इशारा करता है, अरे यार वो सर बुला रहे हैं. Because when everybody is moving in motion, there's a principle in physics, the Heisenberg law, right? Either you could calculate where the object is, or you could or where it is moving, but you can't do both at the same time. Yeah, and that's true, right? So if everybody is in motion, then somebody has to be a constant. So this is natural phenomena, it's biomimicry. There's nothing rocket science here. So obviously, if it's, how would you have caught that? Why these restaurants are not able to catch this? Because interaction design observant नहीं है. अगर वो observant थोड़े भी हो, they realize यार, और जबकि हम सबके साथ हो चुका, मैं गारंटी देता हूँ 100 लोगों को लाओ, उनका इंटरव्यू लो, सैंपल लो, इनके लाइफ बोलेगा ऐसे ऐसे रेस्टोरेंट में जा चुके हैं कि हम बार बार हाथ दे रहे हैं और फिर हमें बोलना पड़ता है भैया आधा घंटा हो गया, भैया 20 मिनट हो गया, भैया तुम्हें 4 बार आवाज दी. So those interaction experience, and as a restaurateur, what are you measuring? मेरा तो वर्ल्ड क्लास खाना है, मेरा तो वर्ल्ड क्लास शेफ है, मेरा इतना टेस्टी है, फिर मेरे यहाँ सेल्स नहीं बढ़ रही. So because we are just looking at the top of the event stack, we are not looking at bottom interaction, what is happening, right? So it is very important that you see how people are behaving, how they're thinking, feeling, by their emotions or by their surveys or whatever measurement is, and then you figure out how do you redesign and figure and put the tasks and the risks over there. So this is for example, this example of e-commerce one. I do research and planning. Now research and planning is a discovery stage where I am going to search. When I'm search, is the information going to be accurate enough or not, which I just showed you as an example. Then at that point, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Not every time you will get, but sometimes you can just stand with your customer or maybe go have some A/B test customers, alpha customer, and test it out. then figure out, what they're talking about it, and then you place an order. And then at all of these stages, what are those events, sequence of events, and at what are they interacting at the front stage or the back stage? जो हमने अभी दिखा, हमने ये example देखा था ना front stage, back stage का, ये वाला. Yes or no?
Yes.
Sir, yes, sir.
And we can map it, right? And then now this is a simplified template. कि ये overall experience को कितना time लगना चाहिए, ये क्या experience stages है, कि पहले वो साइट पे डिस्कवर किया, साइट पे गया, ब्राउज किया, फीचर देखे, परचेस किया. अब ईच स्टेज के लिए भैया पहले वो किस पॉइंट से इंटरेक्ट करेगा, और वो ईच स्टेज जो इंटरेक्ट करेगा, वो बटन उसको दिख रहे कि नहीं दिख रहे, वो चैटबॉट दिख रहा है कि नहीं दिख रहा है, उसके बाद बैक स्टेज पे क्या हो रहा है. तो अगर मैं बैक स्टेज पे जाऊं, फॉर एग्जांपल, इट कैन बी दैट द ऑर्डर रिक्वेस्ट हैज कम. Now at the back end, you are checking whether the order is available or not. How much seconds you take to process that at the back end, whether it's available or not. If it is available in your warehouse, how fast you giving back a feedback to the user. So let's say there's a value in an e-commerce, and the right I mentioned those values. The person looking for deal, confirmation of orders, tracking, delivery, package, and quality. It's something very common. We all do it. We all we expect कि ये तो होना ही चाहिए. तो ठीक है, तुम्हें स्पीड भी चाहिए, क्वालिटी भी चाहिए, अच्छी पैकेजिंग भी चाहिए, और डील्स भी चाहिए. बट वो सब ऊपर जो हो रहा है फ्रंट स्टेज पे, उसका बैक एंड पे 1 सेकंड पे ऑर्डर प्लेस हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा, बिल 1 सेकंड में बन रहा है कि नहीं बन रहा, और अगर अवेलेबल नहीं है कि मैं वेयर हाउस में रियल टाइम उसको दिखा सकता हूँ कि कब अवेलेबल हो सकता है, आफ्टर 10 days 12 days नहीं हो सकता, इट्स ओके. इट डजंट मीन दैट यू हैव टू डिजाइन एवरीथिंग ऑन वन डे, बट द पॉइंट इज you at least are aware where you can fail, or you are aware of your limitations. But if you don't design the front end and the back end interaction spaces, then you will not be even aware that what is going wrong with your platform. Okay. So this is something which we will not cover. I'm just showing you. So what happens is, in a real world environment, these 1 second, 2 second interactions. So here it's a very simple example. 2 examples I've given. One is like, you have created a product, you are an innovator, right? And let's say because you've innovated a new product, what happens is the potential people who you have reached, leads, wo bucket and and then you have a flow, and उसमें से कुछ लोग तुम्हारे new adopter बन गए. ऐसे ही होता है lead pipeline में, and those adopters they become your customers. Obviously, because they are their customer, they are using your product. So the R niche is something which is growing, which I said that in a system, when you test it, you test the flow, some things are growing. Now, if inefficiencies are growing, your churn rate will increase. But if your efficiencies are growing, your virality will increase. So as you are growing, you are reinforcing positive behavior. So your adapters are increasing. Can you see the adapters increasing?
Mm-hmm.
But as your adapters are increasing, your imitators are also going to come. So the funny thing is, what is going to happen, as your competitors are copying you, the next time when you run this cycle, it'll become in a reverse order, because there is something to counterbalance it. This is called yin yang balance. This is called, you can call it good versus evil, whatever analogy you want to call it. It's efficiency versus inefficiency fight. So no system grows forever, and there has to be a measured growth. We'll come to that measured growth and its impact. But when you grow, and if you're growing, it becomes all looks happy day scenario. But then there is going to be someone who's going to copy your ideas, no matter how much niche you build. And if you build 5x value, they will build 5.1x value, just 0.1 more. Who does it? Very famous example, Samsung. Samsung doesn't innovate. Samsung says innovation, innovate and copying. It's not a bad strategy, by the way. Okay, they've saved that money, they lower the cost, and they were beating Apple. Now up to OnePlus आ गया, अब उसके आगे और भी हो सकता है. So what happening is saturation is coming. So then you have to redesign the value configuration, and you have to redesign the interaction space. Okay, so it is just not the interaction space, but the measurement of value and how that value is creating the flow, that is happening in this. So let's do a quiz here, and then I will teach you about flows. Okay. Is inventory a stock or a flow? So stock matlab कि जैसे adopters है, this is a stock. So is inventory a stock or a flow?
Flow.
Stock.
Is purchase of raw material a stock or a flow?
Stock.
Think again.
Purchase is flow.
It's a flow because
Flow.
it's a rate of purchase. The rate of purchase coming into a system, right? Rate of inventory that's coming to system. The rate of inventory is not inventory, right? So that's the thing. Employees is a stock or a flow.
Stock.
Stock.
New hirees.
Flow.
Flow.
So you got it, right? So I'm going to do it also. Yes. So similarly, morale is a stock. You know, layoffs is a flow, and this is called where the butterfly effect comes. एक धागा नहीं खींचा तो पूरा का पूरा butterfly effect chaotic chaos हो जाता है system, right? So when you are talking about interactions, you know, talk about multiple ways those interactions can happen. So there's not going to be just one way, because you can't dictate how your customers are going to experience the system. It's for them, it's a toy. The environment is a toy, and they're curious about it, or they want to have fun with it, or they want to destroy it. Whatever it is, it's still a toy. You know, whatever the aspirational value they're trying to drive out of it. So you have to think about what is projected. Projected is what you are thinking. You know, the blue dark, jo niche beach mein hai. But then what in the scenario, don't cover the wild scenarios. I'm not saying ki har duniya ka event usme dalo. But what is probable and possible, that also you should cover. Be a little playful there, right? So you can say, what is the worst case scenario? अच्छा ये इसका अगर मूड खराब है तो कैसे इंटरेक्ट करेगा सिस्टम के साथ? अच्छा मेरे कस्टमर रेप्स के साथ कैसे इंटरेक्ट करेगा? अच्छा ये मेरे गुड्स के साथ कैसे करेगा? या अगर मैंने इंफॉर्मेशन डिले कर दी, या अगर बारिश हो गई और खाना नहीं पहुंचा इसको तो कैसे रिएक्ट करेगा? तो उस वक्त मुझे क्या करना चाहिए? So that forecasting is just, so what we only do is forecasting, but you can also do backcasting. I can imagine a scenario or what if scenario, and then I can reverse engineer and see what all interactions are possible over there. So if you have, the beauty is once you have done those interactions, then you can become like a story. You can look at it and say, okay, what more is possible here? What are the what ifs? And from what ifs can you go to what next, right? So now what happens is there's another thing which you can do is you can build scenarios. So if I combine two values, you know, and I like good or bad, so I can say delivery slow, let's say variable 2, and fastest delivery. And I can take another variable, let's say deals, no deals versus better deals, best deals in the industry. And then you can say ki scenario 1 mein kya, what are the possible reactions to it? What are the reactions in scenario 2? What are the reactions in scenario 3? What are the reactions in scenario 4? So you can also do this. What I'm doing? I'm taking two value variables, and I'm trying to make a quadrant and trying to do plot scenarios here. Because once you know those scenarios, then you can do this backcasting. You can say, okay, तो एक काम करो, उसको ना यहाँ reward दे दे, क्योंकि अगर हमारा speed ज़्यादा नहीं है, because हमारा budget का limitation, it's okay, but I can set the right expectation की order. What expectation I could have set in Zomato example? We are so excited for your order and honored for it. Your order will reach you in 30 minutes. Set the right ETA. Keep in mind, you're also creating a social impact because the Mr. Devinder who is serving will be serving your order or delivering your order. Lost his job and has now and has now got a job to feed his family with this photograph or her photograph and a story about him or her. Suddenly, what would have happened is that anger would have vanished away. You know that because the system has taken care of you. Now you can only do that if you do scenarios. So again, I am saying you don't have to think about a million scenarios. The average what we realize in each quadrant, if you play with these variables, take two variables at a time and you play. Even if you come out with 2 or 3 scenarios, in the end, you will have 7 or 8 scenarios to play with. That is enough. That is enough. That's it. Okay. So if you have in every interaction space 7 or 5 or 6, 7 or 8, and then from those 7 and 8, you rate those scenarios, which are more important. So you will at least then and rating and then only distill down to 2 scenarios or 3. That's it. So at every interaction space, at every experience, if you have 2 or 3 scenarios, I don't think that is complicated. That is something you can manage. So, okay. So for example, let's say somebody wants speed, capacity, and price. Let's say as a scenario for a coffee machine. And मैंने rating कराई और किसी ने बोला fast, slow. मैं 2 या 3 variable ले लिए. And मैंने scenario देखा capacity and price. So the number of combinations can be 2 to the power of 3 because there are 3 inputs. and they can be fast and slow. So I can only have 8 combinations. So now I know ये 8 combinations का scenario में कैसे design करूँ. Okay, so I am any questions? I'm going to show you some simulations, and now I'm going to go cover something called metrics, which is very important, and then we will end. So you need to give me 15-20 minutes more. Any questions still here?
Yeah, Nikhil, can you please type in the name of the book in the chat box so that we can?
Okay, so there is a book called The Fifth Discipline.
The Fifth Discipline. Okay, thanks.
Okay, this is one of the discipline की spelling क्या होती है मैं ही भूल गया. DISCPL. Peter Sagan. Peter Sagan is the world-renowned person when it comes to interaction dynamics. If you can see here, group solving and systems thinking. In fact, Harvard University said that he may be the foremost thinkers in the world today when it comes to system dynamics. Okay, there are a couple more. There's one more book. If I just I'll show you here. So I'll show you this simulation because you'll never get to see this in your life otherwise. This is not a topic usually covered, and they're really hidden. So there is business processes. So there's another book. I just can't. I know the book, but I just that the name. Okay, so I will give you that book. So there's another book which is very good. You got to give me some time. Maybe I will let you know the team know, and then Sachin can let you know. Okay, and you'll use that book also. By the way, if you want to do simulations, there is 2 softwares called AnyLogic and NetLogo. In fact, you can also design any kind of simulation. And I play by. You find this difficult at Startup XY. All startups not only they do it over there. My kids also do it. You know, so system dynamics, because it's such an important tool. And I'll come to it. I'll show you some of the simulations also. So in the morning only, I was running a simulation where I was showing my kids how you could redesign a metro station, a subway station. So I'll just show you also. So let me go to a subway station. Okay. So typically in subway station, what is the flow?
You go there, buy a ticket.
Yeah, you go there, you buy a ticket, right? So there are people over there. I can set the KPI. So let's say, just give it a second because I've opened a lot of models. So forget this is just a map, but you this is here. These are the objects you can drag and drop, and you can add. So it's pretty simple that way. This is the palette, and from the palette I can select a path. I can select a person who is interacting, or maybe a persona. Then I can add a delay. For example, let's say you're standing in a queue. होता है ना queue में stand कर. That's in an ATM machine, and then and I can a delay, and then what? And I can give them time. So for example, let's say these are pedestrians. So pedestrian is coming, and I say they're arriving at 500 people, and an hour is coming. Very small number. मतलब metro station में तो और भी लोग आ जाते हैं. So and then I say, let's say ये 800 पे आ रहा है, right? And then I can say some people are going to the ATM machine, and then some people are then purchasing a ticket, and then some people are catching accelerators, escalators and the floor. And sync means end कर दिया, end हो गया. And at each stage you can define कि कितने speed पे accelerator चलता है, वो क्या follow करता है, queue का mechanism क्या होना चाहिए. जैसे queue is first in first out, कि जो पहला आया उसको preference देना, last in last out. So yeah, you can define all that, and it's very simple. It's already there. And then I say, okay, let's run the simulation. You know, so then I say, okay, let's run the simulation of subway entrance. So there's a restaurant simulation. मैंने तुम्हें अभी pricing, मैंने अभी तुम्हें वो innovators का दिखाया ना, वैसा कर सकते हो. So you can you can plan your complete revenue, and you can see. Obviously, it's not that they're too accurate. No, but you will get 80% accuracy, which is not bad, which is really very good. तो ये वो जो हमने वेरिएबल्स है हमने यहाँ डिफाइन कर दिया. And now when I run them, right? So you will see 5 people are coming, 6 people are coming. Can you see people walking in? Okay, and now these are the interaction counters where they can purchase the ticket. और उधर वो right side पे ATM है. Now over a period of time, I can go and see, I can see a close view, and I can see, अच्छा यहाँ तो अभी तो ठीक है. So now see, let's say you are interaction space. Okay, so what happens is, let's say your motive is in this space, experience stages, people will come from different gates. And let's say you are a private metro company and they will buy the product here. The product is what they're going to buy the tickets. Now these spaces are for the restaurants. But the major important value is the experience to the customer. Now they will only come to you. Let's say there are competing private players in the metro space. Let's say there are 3-4 metro station, हर एक का अलग-अलग. Hypothetical question. Now अगर यहाँ बहुत ज्यादा रश है और बहुत ज्यादा भीड़ बुकट्टा है तो आप जाना चाहोगे? अगर आपके पास ऑप्शन है तो नहीं ना. So अभी क्या आपने ये सब इंटरेक्शन कर दिया और आपको सब अच्छा लग रहा है, वाह ये तो सब अच्छा चल रहा है, 82 पैसेंजर. But what happens is, this is how systems fail, this is how policy fails, this is how business fails. I suddenly say, I increase this to 5,000 because I am seeing the worst case scenario. I told you, right, do scenario planning. And I say I increase it to 8,000. Now suddenly you will see the system totally changing itself. वही system जो positive feedback कर रहा था, suddenly negative feedback, and then suddenly start realizing, oh my god, I got to redesign this system because this is not going to take the load. So now I again go to any logic and I say, okay, now we are interacting with the space, and now I'm going to go see. Now अब मैंने बढ़ा दिया तो झुंड में लोग आ रहे हैं, and अब मैं अगर यहाँ जाके देखूंगा तो आपको यहाँ लोग फंसते हुए दिखना शुरू हो गए यहाँ ऊपर. और आप ये देख रहे हैं कि अभी यहाँ उतर रहे हैं और अब यहाँ से ऊपर जाएंगे तो आप देखेंगे ये देखा यहाँ भीड़ हो गया. Now your experience is gone for a toss. Now obviously there is something called, people say think out of the box, but no one explains that. What does that mean? So in the box means I can take the similar elements, I don't have the budget, and can I redesign it because abhi crowd इकट्ठा हो गया. I suddenly simulated and realized that so I was asking my kids, क्या करोगे यहाँ तो crowd हो गया, how are you going to redesign the system now, because you don't want to get into the shitty situation. So one way is where so like my son said, Dad, why can't I take these guys and this upar jana or niche jana should not be combined here, because if you have higher flow, can I have it somewhere here where the space is idle? It could be one of the scenarios. Other could be where you think out of the box, you say, no, I'll give you an amp and you pre-check in. And third could be, instead of everybody cluttering here, queue में, line में ticket लेने के लिए, क्या मैं independent छोटे-छोटे kiosks लगा सकता हूँ? तो ये आप scenario planning कैसे करेंगे अगर आप linear सोच रहे हैं? आप कर ही नहीं सकते, because you don't have that. It's like a toy, you can't play with it. But once I start putting load in the system, the beauty is system dynamics in the linear system, or in the way the Newtonian ways or the laws of the world we are taught, input versus output, everything looks good कि ये equation है LHS is equal to RH. But what happens is when you actually put an interaction dynamic to it, you will see systems changing their behavior in a second or in a minute, or whatever time period, and suddenly things change. So I'll come to that, okay? And then we'll end there. So how do you put measurements? Okay, so by the way, that software is called AnyLogic. Okay, this is called AnyLogic. You were asking me, so I've just shown you. So this is called AnyLogic. You can download it. It has already got in itself preloaded example. This is not example which I have created. It has got hundreds of examples already created, and you can create your own models also by them. So there are hundreds of examples from business context to and all. In fact, we do load testing of websites and apps, right? But an app can also be designed like this, where you can the request and response of your server or of your app, and then you can say मेरे app में screen 1 ये है, screen 2 ये है, screen 3 ये है, and then you can say जैसे ही load बढ़ेगा तुम्हारे app में choking point कहाँ होएगा. You can simulate that also. Okay, so so ultimately, what is the difference between a metric and a KPI? If anybody can tell. You guys have done design thinking, so I am pretty sure you guys should, if you've done value, you should know what is metric and a KPI. Anyone? Hello?
These are just analytics point and KPI are key indicators.
Very good. So what you have to do is when you're designing your business model, right, your goal. So I'll first show you a CEO board. This is called a CEO board. We also call it a dashboard. So your KPIs could be that we have to have 50% customers growth this year. I'm just putting a random number here. I need X number of sales. From those sales, 30% should be repeat customers. 70% should be acquired customers. Very good. Now, all of these KPIs which you have put it, and then for those, what is the marketing budget, what is the financial budget, what is the organization capacity, you have planned all that. And you can put it here. Then you can see what am I measuring, what are the target, and what actions I'm going to take. And again, these actions now you can see are interactions, right? Is this point clear? This is fairly simple over here. Yes? I have put all the indicators which I want as a KPI for this year. कि मुझे 15% पे ग्रो करना है या 10% पे ग्रो करना है, उसके लिए कितने प्रोडक्ट बिकने चाहिए, इसके लिए मुझे कितनी वर्कफोर्स चाहिए, क्या हम सब ये प्लान कर सकते हैं अपने बिजनेस मॉडल में?
Yes sir, कर तो सकते हैं.
Right. So they will not be accurate. No one can create an accurate model in the world. No, okay, so कर सकते, right? Now these KPIs, when you put map those experience stages, वो each stage का जो metric है, जैसे वो metric जैसे अभी दिखाया सबवे स्टेशन का rate of flow, तुम चाहते हो तुम्हारी टिकटें बढ़े, पर तुम्हारा rate of flow इतना ज्यादा है और तुमने experience ही डिजाइन नहीं किया कि लोग वहां से भाग जाएंगे, turn rate हो जाएगा. So obviously your metrics has to map with that. So now how do you map metrics? So any metric can be any ratio, proportion or measure, but your KPI should impact either the bottom line or the strategic initiative. So जो तुमने strategic initiative वहाँ strategy map में डाला, आपने बोला 20% grow करेंगे, 30% grow करेंगे, वो metric is a driver variable for it, and KPI is the outcome. So you just don't measure the outcome, you have to measure the driver. वो कि भैया ये driver variable है. जैसे for example, if I have to lose weight, my KPI is lose weight by 5 kgs. It's a good KPI, yes or no?
Yes.
So what are the metrics for that? What can you tell me? Come on, tell me what could be the metrics. Which are drivers?
Calorie.
Sorry?
Exercise, calories.
No.
Food consumption.
How much exercise?
Yes.
How much? What type of calories? How much calories? Yes. So let's say for an e-commerce example, right? So let's go to an e-commerce example. It could be repeat order rate, reduction in wrong order defect, okay, increase first call resolution. मतलब पहले ही operational efficiency, पहला कॉल आया उसको उसी वक्त रेजोल्यूशन मिलना चाहिए. अगर आपका इंटरेक्शन स्पीड डिजाइन नहीं आप नहीं कर सकते. Increase referral rate, are there things? So let's do experience stages को हमने उसको एक loop में डाल दिया, which I covered that. Let's say there's a need, right? So I'll do a discovery. So customer metric is that, and there's a business metric. So business metric is when there is a need, they should be able to discover me, yes or not? So it should be a call to action. How many people are invoking that call of action? Whenever there's a need, whenever they're hungry, how many people are opening my app? Whenever they want to discover jeans, how many people are able to discover me? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the other metric is what? Sticky for customer to ask for more. Is it clear or not? Okay. Then the business metric is what? ROI on that lead generation. जो तुमने marketing पे spend किया, discover किया, वो ROI हुआ कि नहीं हुआ, और क्या वो अगली बारी तुम्हें recall कर पाया कि नहीं कर पाया. बराबर है? So one is the customer metric, other is the business metric. Both are important. You can't just have only business metric, or you can't just have a customer metric. Getting it? Then when you are researching, what do you think? Tell me, what would be at the research level? Customer researching the products. What do you think should be the customer metric and what should be the business metric?
Customer metric should be the how many people buy those products, what is the quality and reviews.
नहीं buy पे तो हम आए नहीं अभी ना, buy तो purchase है. Fourth, research level पे. अभी उसका एक्सपीरियंस पे ब्रेक इट इनटू एक्सपीरियंस. At the research stage, what is customer looking for?
Number of
Filters, sorting,
So first is
check,
clarity.
warranty.
Clarity.
Yeah. Okay.
Second, what person think is ये कितने में दे रहा है, total cost of ownership क्या है. फिर वो specs and warranty भी check कर सकते हैं. साथ में वो queries intuitively answered है कि नहीं, वो feedbacks में या comparison sheets में, हाँ या ना.
हाँ हाँ.
और business metric क्या होगा? Does that research lead to engagement of choice or not? Because why have you put that message, that specs, that warranty? What do you want them to do after that?
Purchase it.
Or at least select it. At least select it, right? Purchase
Yes.
demo, at least select to kare bhai. So at every stage you can have this measurement. Now it is quickly engage with the customer, and at the same time percentage to move. कितने लोग select पे चले गए, and number of opportunities बढ़ी कि नहीं बढ़ी, drop rate low हुआ कि नहीं. अच्छा, आप select stage पे क्या होगा? चलो गेम बताओ. select stage पे customer को क्या चाहिए? अभी परचेज नहीं कर रहा, सिलेक्ट किया. बिजनेस metric, example metric.
Example would be price. Business would be like how many are people adding to cart.
Okay, so how much time to select, upsell, cross sell, because they have already added. And business wise, it is whether it is easy to check out, can they do multi checkout, loyalty and rewards. Okay, what do you think should be in the purchase as a customer metric and a business metric? Business means you, and customer means customer perceived.
Purchase, like how many people are actually, no,
Yeah,
business
after
metric would be like
selecting,
how many
purchasing.
orders we're getting. Customer metric would be like whether it seems secure to them to place the order.
Very good. That can be a very good metric. So, so what secure can be trust? Yes or
Reviews
no?
and ratings.
Sorry?
Reviews and ratings.
No.
Reduce in what? I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Review. Customer reviews.
नहीं, review तो select stage और research stage पे आ गया ना. Now अभी वो purchase का experience है. See, हम क्या करते हैं ना, हम सारे क्लब करके एक ही metric दिखा देते हैं. आपको हर एक experience stage पे metric देखो. अब वो purchase के level पे वो क्या metric देख रहा है? कि trust, like someone said कि is it safe to buy? Is it easy? Is it personalized? Does it give me tracking? वो होगा. Business metric क्या होगा?
Purchase.
Revenue.
The magnitude of order, I mean money, the money that
So
you're getting per
revenue
order.
or transaction, and then low, that once it drop now there, card rate abandoned now there. Okay, अब e-commerce example. अच्छा, जब receive हो गया तो customer metric क्या है? कभी use नहीं है. By the way, don't confuse use. Use नीचे है.
Like they have received the same product what they ordered.
Okay, what you saw is what you got. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Time of ordering.
Ease of delivery, delivery minimum delivery time, then experience of
delivery
delivery
time, delivery safety, then delivery cost, delivery
cost.
connect. How emotionally you're connecting, thank you card or thing, whatever. I mean, just putting as experience. What is the business metric?
How many orders getting delivered? What is the time in which getting delivered?
No, here वो तो purchase से आ जाएगा. How many orders?
No, delivery, like purchases, the customer has only placed the order. What if it is getting returned back to you?
Yeah, so first of all is reliable and cost effective, secure
Damage,
packaging.
zero damage.
Zero damage, zero wastage.
Yes.
Okay. Then use level पे क्या होएगा? Customer and business metric.
Delightful experience. I mean, more than what you imagine.
Very good. So customer का recall होना चाहिए, delightful होना चाहिए. Friends के साथ फिर वो recommend को transit करेगा कि नहीं करेगा वो है. तो engagement के बाद FRM का frequency and recency बढ़ा कि नहीं बढ़ा? बार मेरा order होता है कि नहीं होता?
And sometimes people
जीन्स ऑर्डर किया, हो सकता है कल को मैं उसी ब्रांड का टी शर्ट ऑर्डर कर दूं, लेकिन क्या मेरा फ्रीक्वेंसी रिसेंसी है क्या, और साथ में यूजेज का डिलाइट है कि नहीं, इमोशनली अटैच है कि नहीं
Emotionally
brand।
attached. So using that as a gift for, your extended circle, you're so delighted with that product that you're buying it for others also.
वेरी गुड। अब बिजनेस मेट्रिक क्या होएगा, तुम क्या चाहोगे जब वो फ्रीक्वेंसी और रिसेंसी बढ़ गया और इमोशनली अटैच्ड है कस्टमर, तो व्हाट डू यू वांट आउट ऑफ दैट?
They want to come back on the platform
Share
and
करें।
reorder.
So you want the adoption rate should increase, you want the
should
revenue
write
should
feedback.
increase, you should have the volume over time should increase, the net promoter score, the feedback should increase. Yes, right. So and then to maintain support. So again, that is key, that churn rate should not decrease, should decrease, and it should be self buy. Now they trust you. Can they self buy? Can they upsell? Can they cross sell? And then can you transcend that space from a product configuration or service configuration to a relationship of trust, where they can even give you more ideas कि तुम ऐसा क्यों नहीं करते यार, या चल मैं तेरे को 2 और leads दे देता हूँ, and are you giving them priority support, like the rewards? Typically what people do is, a lot of startups do is they give rewards to people who are never their customers. They are deep discounting, उस पर rewards दे रहे हैं और वो कभी उनको दे नहीं रहे, and then people जो लोग रोज उनसे खरीद रहे हैं उनको reward ही नहीं मिलते. So
also they give access to you, like if you're coming out with something new, some new product or a new service, they give you early access for your feedback.
Very good.
Or something like
so
that.
And ultimately you had personas have values, you understand that, and those values have to be which they finally want. Those, to achieve that value, there is an experience stage. In that experience stage, you can break them into subsystems. Each subsystem has an event and they are interacting, and at each of those interaction points, by research, I can have a KPI of a customer and a business. Okay, and then it maps to your strategy board. Okay, so this is how you actually have to map and design. And then you test the systems. Test में emergent behavior आता है. जो मैंने सबवे का सिस्टम दिखाया वो बहुत अच्छा था, बहुत ब्यूटीफुल लग रहा था, वाह एक्सकेलेटर है, ये है वो. जब मैंने टेस्ट किया, लोड डाला, एक नया इमर्जेंट बिहेवियर आया कि भैया 2 तो झुंड बन गए उधर और वो एक्सकेलेटर्स के उधर. So that's an emergent behavior of complex system. So you have to decode patterns when you have to test it. You will see patterns. There can be a steady increase, steady decrease. There can be an accelerated increase or accelerated decrease. There can be an abrupt logarithmic or an exponential change. And whenever there is a upar niche pattern in those events, then there is a balance and a reinforce. कोई counter force है जो उसको काट रहा है, जो हमने reinforce और balance देखा था, या कुछ abnormally grow कर रहा है. Now obviously profit should grow abnormally, your growth should go abnormally, but I would still say don't grow abnormally. You need to first have your processes aligned, your interactions aligned, because otherwise you're going to falter. Your churn rate will increase because there'll be a choking point, and you should know your choking point. If you don't know your choking points, sorry to say, you can have $1 billion funding, you're going to screw it up. There's a lot of value destruction happening as it is in the world. So you got to decode these patterns, right? So by looking at कि steadily increase कर रहा है, decrease कर रहा है, linear कर रहा है, logarithmic कर रहा है, ऊपर नीचे जा रहा है. What are the limits of growth? एक limit growth के बाद वो choking point है. तो वो choking point का threshold क्या है? And then what are the cause and effects? What are causing it in those interactions, right? For example, we studied that if I put more people in the queue, it affected was to cause more traffic, and then which led to lesser people buying tickets. Similarly, those cause and effects can be, let's say, if there's a fear of bank failure, people withdraw money, then there is less money in the bank, then the less interest earned, there can be a solvency problem in the bank. So there is an interaction causal loop which is happening. This thing is also important. Like we had 14 values, we have 9 problems. So not only those problems have a rate of change of acceleration, but there are problems in those interactions which can happen in the motion or waiting for processing, or there can be defects, or there can be over processing, overproduction. There can be a problem of movement of items from one to another. That can be a movement of from one screen to another because I can't see the button, or maybe there's a problem of screen getting hanged in an app, or it can be a physical warehouse. So this is called Tim Woods. So like you have 14 value principles, you also have Tim Woods where you have problem principles, There can be a problem, and if you map most of the problems in the world, you will realize they follow under transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, skill, defects, overprocessing, and there's another one, visual saliency, which means overload, which has been added new. This is overload.
Oh.
Typically, yeah.
So basically, this is the problem which we can see, means all the problems can be defined in the templates.
Yes. So
Any problem in the world.
Once you have defined your values, and once you have
Yes.
designed your interactions, and once you have
Yes.
measured them, and you have mapped to your strategy map, but आप जब टेस्ट करोगे रियल वर्ल्ड में, जैसे मैंने सबवे का एग्जांपल दिया था, so there is going to be certain behavior, yes or no, increase, decrease, because of the flow rate.
Yes.
Okay. And then those problems are mapped. Then you can ask like a CEO, भाई क्या problem हुई थी? Is it that we don't have raw material? There is an inventory thing. Is it that the people are not skilled? Is it an information asymmetry problem, which again is a problem of maybe we are waiting for the information for too long. So you can then see okay, where the choking points have happened. Okay. Now, there are few more things you have to look at, which we have already discussed, is circulation, because it's like a nervous system, right? And the relationships. And so the flow rate, if the flow rate increases, these inputs will start being visible. So if you are a manufacturing company, there are 40 more things which come under TRIZ. TRIZ is a game-changing technique. It was invented in 1940s, where you can add a little bit more variables like strength, durability, power, energy, and they will fall under this. So practically, there are 14 value principles, and then there's inputs. And if you're manufacturing, then you have certain more variables to look at. And with that, when you test the system, then you can see overall, जो तुमने overall events, जो तुमने interaction space बनाया, फिर events हुआ, फिर तुमने pattern देखा. जैसे हमने pattern क्या देखा? Rise in the queue in the subway and decrease in the ticketing line because people don't want it. And then you can ask yourself question, what happened? वो event हुआ, pattern क्या था? वो graph में ऊपर जा रहा है, नीचे जा रहा है. तो क्या counter force है, क्या हो रहा है? फिर तुम जब interactions देखोगे, तुम्हें वो system structure दिखना शुरू हो जाएगा. And then you will get to the why. So we only look at events and we map the events and we think the world is done, you know, but it's actually, it's an iceberg model, what, when, how, and why. So you look at those events. So when you are testing the model, you will see those events, you'll see those patterns, and then you see those relationships. And then you say, kya balance kar raha hai, wo B is balance, or kya reinforce kar raha hai. And then aap check karoge, isme Tim Boots ka ho raha hai, bhai, kya ho kya raha hai? Motion mein problem hai, product move nahi kar raha, service nahi kar raha, या competency की कमी है, defects ज़्यादा है क्योंकि processes are not set right, and then based on that you can put an assumption that this has happened. These are the key findings. This is the evidence we have. These are the patterns, and then you can what do you call go to a, you know, you can say, okay, the value we wanted deals, but there is a mismatch because the person ignored those deals. And the Tim Woods was, there was overproduction of saliency. Saliency matlab too many items, too many things are seen on one screen. Or there was the order confirmation में wait time बहुत ज़्यादा था, confirming, तो बंदा ने हमारा ऐप ही छोड़ दिया. या पैकेजिंग जो है वो ओवरसाइज था, एक्स्ट्रा बजल था, जिससे हमारी कॉस्ट ज़्यादा हो गई. तो डिलीवर तो हो गया, बट इन्वेंटरी की वजह से आर, you know, we are having a cost structure, fixed cost, variable cost is be getting hit. So this is how you design interactions. You basically look at patterns, you simulate, you model, you make assumptions, and then you test them out, right? And then you can and then obviously you can take feedback of your customers. That's the obvious thing. So the variables which you have chosen, right? At least those variables, whether it is price, volume, growth, whatever those values are, you should never have Tim Woods over there. You should not have choking points till at least for the 1 year, 1.5 year roadmap you have planned. And your net promoter score should be at least higher than your competitor, and the value should be at least 3x to 5x. Okay. So we have also seen that you can have multiple paths. So you can't say that the customer will choose only one path on your website or in the store. They can choose multiple paths, and all those paths you have to measure. कि इस path से जाता है तो customer को कितना experience आ रहा है, दूसरे path से जाता है तो क्या experience आ रहा है, जो हमने what if scenario analysis किया था. So then there comes the empathy map, which I'm not going to cover because it's part of design survey. What they feel, think, and do, you can actually map it. You know, not only the value, but the senses part, right? When you're physically observing them, you can say, are they happy? Are they sad when they look at it? What is the emotional response? And then once you prioritize them, then you can give it the problem is in which department or in which interaction, because you know the KPI, you know the measurement, you know the pattern, you know the team books, and you can then you can actually make them, you can tell people who are responsible for fixing it and redesign your system. So you can, I'm not going to cover how to ideate and think about redesigning. That's a very different field. Or how to create disruptive ideas. That even how to think, how to find problem spaces in the current interaction space, not only in your, but in your industry, and how disruption works, how people become, how multi-billion-dollar empires are created because they find those disruptions. Those are also the things which one can learn. Okay, but we'll end it here. But typically now, let's say in team books you have found out 4 or 5, 10 problems. You don't have to solve all the problems. Only 1 or 2 which matter most to your customer, which are tied to that KPI, and KPI translates to that value. So you look at the user segment, the frequency of the problem. If it is a corner scenario, leave it, and the severity. And then you can prioritize it as a high impact or a low impact problem. Okay, so similarly, so in all your interactions, you can find those problem statements and you can define. I'm not going to get into the mathematics of, you can also predict behaviors. Using something called Markov chains, where there is something called initial state, and then number of people who move from an initial screen or from an initial state to another state. It's like a matrix. And then you can also predict what is the probability of they moving from one screen to another. But we will not cover this. It's a bit too much of information. One last thing I do want to cover, because very simple, is a lot of people, if I ask you, do you want revenue retention or revenue growth? Everybody wants to have a revenue growth or revenue retention. But I give you 2 options. One is option A, awesome retention and little bit of revenue growth. And the other is awesome revenue growth, little bit of retention. Which will you choose?
Option A.
Awesome retention.
Awesome retention.
Sorry?
Option A. Option A.
You will choose option A because you option is very good. Because if you want to upsell, if you want to reduce your cost of acquisition, increase the LTV, you have to choose option A. But you will find most of the startups they struggle and they go for the option B because they don't understand the value of interactions and experience and lifetime value. So what happens is, like I said, the dance of balance between growth, customer excellence, and teams, right? So let's say you are a fiber optic company. And let's say तुमने fiber optic लगाई society में. There's a fixed cost you got to bear, right? The fixed cost can be 10-15 lakhs because तुम्हें under the lay cable lay करनी होती है, खुदाई करनी पड़ती है. And you realize that cost of acquisition of the customer is 6,000 rupees. And your gross margin is 80. मतलब direct cost is 20%. So obviously तुम्हें कितना बचेगा अगर मैं 80% करूँगा इसका 420 रुपए. So hello. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
So if I have to recover my even cost of acquisition, forget my fixed cost, only cost of acquisition, in how many months will I recover? 420 rupees. Or 480, whatever that is. It will be in the 13th, 14th, the 13th month. First month, okay, so I 480 dekhe. Now imagine I am recovering my marketing cost and acquisition cost after 13 months. I have not even recovered my fixed cost that I will recover over a period of few years. Now this is where startups go wrong. They hear the word LTV and they say, sir, मेरे business model में तो LTV है, लेकिन अगर आपका growth check पे नहीं है, अगर आपके interaction dynamics and value experiences map नहीं है, what will happen is that your churn rate will be higher. And when the churn rate higher is, this 13th month will go up to 18th month. And that 18th month will go to 36th month. That means you'll never come into profit. And there's another thing. Let's say your churn rate is higher, but you are able to charge more. Instead of 600, you're able to charge 1200. You will recover that money, cost of monthly recovery in 6.3 months. But why will anybody pay you more? They will only pay you more if you give 5x the value. If you are able to get. So the moral of the story is that there are no fixed numbers here where whether kitna churn rate hona chahiye ya main kitna price charge karna chahiye. Everything is customer perceived value. And if you can't measure your value, sorry, you are not into business. You are actually just hallucinating. You know, I'm very direct with my words. So you measure your value. You break the value into those experience steps, and those experiences into interactions, and then you at every stage have a metric which maps to those KPIs in the strategy board. And at the same time, you should know how much flow you can afford. It is not if you're getting $1 million, I will put it into marketing and I'll try to get customers. It might all fail and might leak. This is actually happening because A, you might not be able to sustain the service. A, your processes are not aligned and your customer experiences can come down. That will increase the churn rate, increase the cost of acquisition, and decrease the LTV. And your break-even points will shift. And the more the break-even point shift, you are going to get into problems. So, moral of the story is everything is interconnected. This churn rate, this LTV, your gross margins, all are interconnected to your interaction dynamics and experience. You cannot just have one isolation of the another. So, okay, so we have talked about system, flow, and measure. I'm not going to repeat it. You guys know it. And finally, I'll say, don't look at silos. Don't make a business model with art khane and try to think ki ye mera USP hai, ye mera channel hai, ye mera KPI hai. The world does not work like this. Reality is very different from what two-dimensional world representation we do on tables and charts. So try to look at it in a collective whole. Try to build it as a connected experiences like on the right. Try to think about non-linearity and think about the emergence of behaviors. I've taught you about how you can do that. I hope you are able to. I know there's too much of information. I know this is first time you guys are looking at it. But
too much, sir.
Yes, but make an attempt to break down into simple subsystems. जैसे हमने Zomatic की story परसों तोड़ी थी, and break down into subsystems. Typically, interaction design doesn't, and business model design. This is not a. I mean, I told the team also this is not a 2 days topic. It's actually you have to go slow. But I have tried to go as slow as possible and try to give you in a simplified way. So try to look at the Zomato example like an analogy. कि वो customer ने interact किया कैसे. So how do you do that is you envision कि तुम्हारे scenario में reverse it. Customer क्या करेगा? तो कस्टमर यहाँ जाएगा, फिर ये करेगा एंड नोट डाउन दैट सीक्वेंस. अब वो सीक्वेंस में आप देखना टच पॉइंट्स कौन से हैं फ्रंट एंड पे और बैक एंड पे, और फिर देखना ये जो वैल्यू चाह रहे हैं वो वैल्यू मैट्रिक्स क्या, वैल्यूज क्या, और मैं अब वो ईच स्टेज पे हाउ डू आई डिफाइन दैट वैल्यू. इफ यू डू दिस, स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द कस्टमर एंड विजुअलाइज योर कस्टमर इन कि वो कैसे स्टोर में जा रहा है, या वो कैसे B2C प्रोडक्ट ले रहा है या B2B प्रोडक्ट ले रहा है, तो यू इट बिकम्स वेरी मच सिंपल. If you start from your side, it will become very complicated. Okay. So I end here. We can yeah. Anything we can have 5 or 10 minutes if you want to ask anything. Please feel free.
So we basically start with the customer's journey, as in when the customer is means when the problem occurs, when the customer actually has something, a cue to get interacted with our product, get information about it.
Right from discovery stage, customer आपके बारे में सोच रहा है या need gap. So I am making an assumption that you have already done your need gap analysis. You know the values. If you don't know the values, then this doesn't work. So let's say you know the values among those 14 values, and then you have a product or a service. Then customer का steps क्या है? Everybody can think about steps of their business. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So those steps को लिख लो, and those steps को आप देखो वो events कौन से system में belong करते हैं. जैसे payment है, वो payment system का part है. जैसे you know, so break it into subsystems, and then you say अच्छा ये इधर से यहाँ, then they can do this and this and this and this and this, like we did that in the Zomato example. किया था कि नहीं किया था या भूल गए, पत्ती गुल?
नहीं याद है.
नहीं सर, याद है.
Right. So once you do that, then you say अच्छा. So, and by the way, how did I design that system? I just looked at a newspaper article, or let's call a LinkedIn article, right? And I was able to figure out, because I keep doing this thinking, okay, where did they, what, because no entrepreneur wants to get a bad product, right? I mean, 99% don't, right? So, but the idea is where we fail is unintentionally, because we don't capture those. So once I could figure out that ye interactions yahan hai or ye hai, then you can do that. So you imagine, visualize the customer behavior line. That is the most important thing. How is he going to interact with my at the discovery stage of experience, at the purchase stage of the experience, at the comparison stage of the, before the purchase, the comparison stage of the experience, and after that, the usage stage, and then the servicing stage. And then that each stages, what are the values they are looking for, and उस value को translate करने के लिए front stage और back stage पे क्या actions हो, and फिर तो it becomes very simple to do it. Okay, so visualization is very much important. अगर रट्टा करके जाओगे तो नहीं होएगा, अगर थोड़ा imagination use करोगे तो वो हो जाएगा.
Okay, ठीक है sir. We will try it.
Okay, so please try it. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so I think, yeah.
सर जैसे मैट्रिक्स जो सेट होते हैं वो बेस्ड ऑन हमारे assumptions हो गए, बट जो KPIs होंगे वो सर जो मैट्रिक्स है और KPIs है, तो जो मैट्रिक्स होंगे वो बेस्ड ऑन आवर assumptions रहेंगे, बट जो KPIs रहेंगे वो रहेंगे जिससे हमारे बिजनेस में इम्पैक्ट आता है, whether our business is growing or
again we right now see, now that is why you guys don't listen properly. हमने अभी exercise करी थी where we had customer metrics and business metrics. So you need both.
Okay.
You can have the world's best product making zero money, that we're not doing social service. Okay, you need both. You need a business metric and you need to have a customer metric, and those values are nothing but driver variables जो metrics को translate करते हैं, वो KPIs को activate करते हैं. So like I said, I want to reduce weight. Let's say, and let's say you are a nutrition company, right? And I have come to you and I say I want to reduce weight, and you say, okay, what is your goal? And I say that this is my preferences goal, and you also put your expertise, and they say, okay, the goal is to reduce 10 kilos in the next 3 months. Right? So let's say we put it that for 4 months. Now to transcend that value, there will be certain metrics. Ki kitna khana khao, what to eat, when to exercise, when to sleep. Oh, you know, so all those values at every experience stage have to be defined. So, and even before that, how do I find that nutritional institute or that company? At the discovery stage, to when I'm purchasing it and comparing it, to when I'm using it, to when I'm asking for a reservice or a refill or upsell, or even if the things go wrong, what are the metrics and the value they're looking for? So whatever that journey is at every stage, so it is not that what you are assuming. First of all, it is not your assumption. No one cares about your assumption. The assumption is what customer wants. And your business also can't work if you don't give anything to the customer, right? So ultimately, your business metrics are the derivative, are the derivative of your customer metrics. So ultimately, if you want your sales to grow, it can't grow if your customer is not happy. It can't grow if the experience is not good or you don't upsell. So you need to first have the customer metrics, which is even more important. You can define your metrics, it doesn't matter. You can say I'll grow at 100%, 500%, 10%. We all can make hockey stick graphs, Excel sheet. It doesn't matter. What matters is your customer. You got to think from your customer and reverse engineer everything from there. So customer metrics, customer KPIs, and then translate them into business. Okay.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had a question. You had briefly mentioned something about influence in a space where decision makers are involved, and it's not really about consumers buying or purchasing your products. Could you just elaborate a bit more as to what exactly did you mean by, yes, there is influence, which might give you some kind of leeway. I'm talking from the perspective of a service or a public good that the government needs to adopt. So, I mean, a hypothetical situation like that,
So,
how to approach that?
No, you have to break it down and tell you what the way, who are the stakeholders, what the product is. But you know, even in a hypothetical context, see, when you are dealing with a service or a product which is specifically the government level, you have to understand you want an incentive, maybe as an entrepreneur, that it should be efficient as a system.
Yeah.
Right. But maybe for them, an inefficient system is the system, and that because they can drive more value out of that. So what I'm trying to say is, so any decision making unit, specifically in a B2B environment, right? You need to understand who are the stakeholders involved. And like I showed in the Excel sheet, right? If you remember an Excel sheet. And then who are the people who are neutral? Even more important than who are with you, who are neutral in the ecosystem, right?
Okay.
And can you take a buy-in from neutral? And you have to ultimately get them some value, even if it is at the government level for public good. Okay, let's say example. Let's say I say, make solar energy deni public good. Government is not going to talk to you. But as you say कि इससे सरकार 200 megawatt plant लगा के इतने पैसा कमा सकती है, तो the state treasury will start talking to you. Okay, unfortunately, that is how we are driven. You know, we are not driven by altruistic motives. Let's be very honest. We can talk about people, profit, planet, but human mind evolution is such that money has been given the precedence. Unfortunate, but it is. What you have to do is you have to take the public good, but you have to also have a monetization strategy.
Okay.
So you might not be able to say कि मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ, because we are not corrupt. But we हम ये जरूर कर सकते हैं कि but bureaucracy corrupt है. Let's be very honest over there. I have faced those situations. Okay, बोलते हैं सर थोड़ा दे दो आपका. So there have been education institutes where I can जैसे कि where IAS officers told आप Rolex दे दे कब दे रहे हैं तो बताइए. तो मतलब you know, so those kind of situations also happen. Anyways, so we don't wait there and we don't talk to them about this. But then how I drive that is that I say, in the larger scheme of things, can you amplify the value कि उसको लगे कि यार